Chapter 870. In the following period of time, Noah was not in a hurry to continue to improve his ability value, but to hone Baal's fighting skills. He had been wandering back and forth between the first to the fourth floor. If Noah wanted to continue to improve his ability value, he would probably have to go to the lower and deeper levels. Once he went to the lower and deeper levels, it would take him 2 to 3 days to go back and forth. Since he had been away for half a month, if he left immediately after coming back, Hestia would probably complain. Therefore, Noah was not in a hurry. He gave himself a period of time to familiarize himself with his current strength. He mixed with Baal in the first to fourth floor while observing his current strength. After leveling up to LV2, even if he did not use Authority and Gate of Babylon, Noah's strength did indeed make a leap. Not to mention the enhancement brought by magic to magic and magic. Just the 4 basic abilities of strength, durability, dexterity, and agility to Noah's body made Noah benefit a lot. Now, even if Noah did not use enhanced magic, he should be able to fight with Saber and Berserker in close combat. Of course, he would still be at a disadvantage. At this rate, when Noah was promoted to LV3, he should be able to compete with Saber and Berserker, a servant at the level of Berserker. If he leveled up to LV4, he would definitely be able to suppress Saber and Berserker in close combat. As for leveling up to LV5 or even LV6 or perhaps higher levels, Noah felt excited just thinking about it. After being clear about his strength and having a visual estimate of his future development, Noah naturally wouldn't be in a hurry. Therefore, he decided to stay in Eulalie for the time being. On this day, Noah and Baal still went down to the 4th floor of the dungeon, moving forward in the same dim passage. Pa-gee! Along with the sound of cracking, a wall in front of Noah and Baal suddenly broke apart, allowing 2 skinny monsters to break free from the inside. They raised their hands proudly and let out unpleasant cries. Goblin. Noah took a step back out of habit. Baal. Yes, Commander. Baal nodded his head and drew his dagger from his waist. He then charged towards the 2 goblins. Ga. The 2 goblins discovered Baal and roared at him as they charged at him. Their eyes were bloodthirsty, and they didn't seem to care about the human charging at them. They were only concerned about whether the human's flesh was enough for them to feast on. Under such circumstances, the distance between the 2 sides was rapidly closing. Whoosh! At this moment, Baal's speed suddenly soared, and in a flash, he dove under the 2 leaping goblins. Ga. The low IQ goblins didn't expect the human in front of them to be so fast, and their sharp claws paused in midair. In that instant, Baal's body dashed forward, passing through the gap between the 2 goblins that were pouncing at him, and brushing past the goblins. Shwa! The sharp dagger suddenly flashed out. Poo-chee! The 2 goblins' necks were instantly lacerated, and blood spurted out. With a pung sound, they turned into ashes in midair and exploded. The entire process didn't take more than 5 seconds. Within 5 seconds, Baal had taken care of the 2 goblins that he had fought a few days ago in one fell swoop. This result made Noah raise his eyebrows. Although Baal was still a complete newbie in terms of ability points, in terms of combat skills he had a certain standard. With Baal's equipment and level 3 weapon, as long as he didn't go to level 7 and below, he should be able to survive, right? According to the guild's records, if a newbie adventurer went to level 4 and below within a month of becoming an adventurer, the survival rate was only 10%. In other words, if a newbie adventurer went to level 4 and below out of 10 of them, there was only 1 chance of survival. One could imagine how fast Baal's combat skills had improved. Noah couldn't find fault with Baal being able to improve to such a level in a few days. Then there's no problem, Noah said in a relaxed tone. As long as you don't go to level 7 and below, you should have the ability to survive, right? Is that so? Baal, who had returned from collecting magic stones, said with anticipation. Then leader, can you bring me down? You really want to go to the lower levels? Noah didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Even if you want to have a chance encounter, what kind of chance encounter can there be in the lower levels of the dungeon? There's no such thing, Baal argued. The more dangerous the place, the more likely it is to meet a beautiful princess who is waiting for the hero to save her. For example, a castle guarded by a demon king, a forest occupied by a witch, and so on. That's what the books say. Noah didn't even have the strength to complain. He knew that it was only written in books, so why would he believe it? Furthermore, Bale had read storybooks, right? Even if the more dangerous the place, the more beautiful it is, you still have to have the ability to go in, Noah said unhappily. With your current ability, you want to go into a demon king's castle or a witch's forest. Are you looking for death? Bale suddenly became listless and whimpered. It would be great if I had my own magic. Magic was equivalent to a sure-kill skill. This was the understanding of everyone in this world. Just like Noah in the past, once he had the crushing magic, his strength had leaped to another level. If Bale had magic, then he would have no problem going to level 10, right? Do you really want to go to the lower levels that much? Noah rubbed his temples and laughed bitterly. Forget it, if you really want to go to the lower levels, I'll bring you there. Bale suddenly raised his head, his face full of surprise. Really? Leader? What do you think? Noah glanced at Bale and walked forward. In order to prevent you from going down alone and ending up in the stomach of a monster, it seems that I need to show you the difference between you and the monsters on the lower floors. After saying this, Noah turned his head and smiled at Bale. That smile made Bale's hair stand on end. Then Bale heard Noah's words. Let's be clear, unless you're about to die, I won't do anything. Bale's face suddenly twitched violently. The anticipation and surprise on his face turned into the usual nervousness and fear. He braced himself and followed behind Noah. Just like this, under Noah's lead, Bale passed through level 5, passed through a flight of stairs on level 6, and arrived at level 7. The air on level 7 was filled with an atmosphere that made one's hair stand on end. When he arrived here, Bale was more or less regretful and spoke nervously. Leader, I think we should go back. Didn't you want to go down? Noah said with a half-smile. I wanted to bring you to level 17 to see the floor master. Floor master. Bale took a deep breath and shook his head desperately. No, there's no need. Let's go back. After saying this, Bale immediately wanted to run back. However, at this time, Noah's pupils constricted, and he grabbed Bale's shoulder. Woo 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 woo. In the next second, a violent roar filled the entire space, drilling into Noah and Bale's ears. Bale was completely frozen on the spot. Noah, on the other hand, saw it clearly. He saw it, at the end of the tunnel, a monster with the head of a cow and the body of a human. It was more than 2 meters tall, with strong muscles, sharp horns and blood-red eyes, and it was madly charging towards them with heavy footsteps. This monster was very similar to the monster Noah massacred on level 37. Minotaur? Chapter 871. Ooh! The Minotaur, a monster with a minotaur's head and a human body, charged toward Noah and Bale like a chariot. Its heavy footsteps even caused the ground to tremble slightly, and the air was suddenly filled with a terrifying atmosphere. Seeing the Minotaur, which was of a completely different level from him, rushing toward him with an astonishing momentum, Bale was completely stunned on the spot. His body trembled, but he could not move. That was natural. In terms of classification, the Minotaur was a LV 2 monster. Monsters of this level generally only appeared in the middle level, and it was rather deep in the middle level. According to the threat assessment made by the guild based on the monsters on each floor of the dungeon, the Minotaur was recognized as the most threatening monster in the middle level. In terms of strength, the Minotaur was the strongest in the middle level, except for Goliath, the floor owner. Bale was only a LV 1 monster. He was a novice adventurer at LV1. Even facing the monsters on the 7th floor was dangerous, let alone facing the strongest monster on the 24th floor and above, except for the floor owners. Therefore, in the face of the deadly monster that was rushing toward him, Bale's mind was completely blank, and he did not know what to do. Fortunately, Bale was not the only one here. Next to Bale, there was a deep area that had been explored many levels deeper than the middle level. That level was just a small matter, but if they were serious, even the gods could not ignore its existence. Level 2 Minotaur? The strongest monster except for Goliath? For Noah, who could easily defeat Goliath when he was at LV 1, now that he had reached LV 2, there was an insurmountable barrier between him and the Minotaur. Clang! In the space around the Minotaur that was rushing toward them, a golden light rose and golden ripples fluctuated and covered the surroundings of the Minotaur. Immediately afterwards, silver chains with sharp spikes at the front ends shot out from the golden ripples like pythons. In a flash, they coiled around the Minotaur's body and wrapped around its limbs. Pa! The Minotaur, who was rushing forward, was directly pulled back by the chains tightly wrapped around its body and limbs, and hung in the air. Ooh! Amidst the berserk roar, the monster named Minotaurus began to struggle, causing the chains that tightly bound its body to emit crisp sounds. Unfortunately, no matter how strong the Minotaurus was, his muscles bulged as he struggled frantically, but he still couldn't break free from the silver chains. Heaven's Lock Enkidu. For enemies with divinity, it was a treasure that was like a natural enemy. For the Minotaur that did not have divinity, the true power of the treasure called Enkidu could not be exerted. However, even so, the heavenly lock was still a noble relic. Even if it was used to deal with an opponent without divinity, it was still much stronger than a normal chain. It would not be so easy for LV. Two monster to break it. Looking at the Minotaur that was constantly roaring and struggling, Noah frowned. Why did the Minotaur come here? It was not that monsters could not cross floors and leave their own territory. However, that usually only happened between 2 or 3 adjacent floors. The Minotaur was a monster that was born on floors above the 15th floor. There were 8 floors to cross from the 7th floor. This was a bit abnormal. Leader! Leader! Bell came back to his senses and grabbed Noah's shoulder, shouting in horror. It's the Minotaur! It's the Minotaur! I have eyes, so I saw it clearly, Noah said helplessly. However, your eyes are not very good. Bell, I've already caught it. What are you still afraid of? Caught it? Bell was stunned. He looked at the struggling Minotaur timidly, but there was no lack of surprise in his tone. Was that done by you, leader? If it wasn't me, who else could it be? Noah did not have time to pay attention to Bell. Ignoring the timid Bell, he walked forward and came in front of the Minotaur. Looking at Noah, who was less than 2 meters away from it, the Minotaur struggled. Its red eyes stared at Noah, and white smoke was coming out of its nostrils. It roared at Noah again and again. However, there was a faint hint of fear in its roar. Obviously, even though the Minotaur only had the intelligence of a wild beast, it still understood. The human in front of it, who was much shorter and thinner than it, was definitely not someone it could touch. It also understood how dangerous this human was. In the face of the Minotaur's fearful roar, Noah's expression did not change. He just stared at it. Why did you cross so many floors to come here? The Minotaur, who could not speak, naturally would not answer this question. However, this question did not bother Noah for long. In the next moment, the person who could give Noah the answer appeared. Da-da-da. Accompanied by a series of hurried footsteps, 2 figures rushed out from the end of the passage where the Minotaur had just appeared. They were imprinted in Noah's eyes. Noah turned his head and looked over. When he saw the 2 figures, he was stunned. One of them was a beautiful girl with elegant blonde hair, while the other was an orc youth with a lightning-shaped tattoo on his face. They were Aze and Bert, who had followed Loki's family on an expedition to the underground city more than a month ago. Noah exclaimed in shock. Why are you guys here again? Aze did not expect to see Noah here, and a hint of astonishment appeared on her face. Bert was even speechless. You little brat, why are you here? Since witnessing Noah's strength more than a month ago, Bert had not found fault with Noah. He did not even face Noah on the 18th floor, as though he was planning to disappear from Noah's sight. After reaching the 18th floor, Noah had not seen Bert face to face. However, now it seemed that Bert had only stopped finding fault with Noah. It did not mean that he was not hostile to him. At the very least, this werewolf definitely did not have a good impression of Noah. As for AIC, after seeing Noah, her tense expression gradually relaxed. She shifted her gaze to the Minotaur, who was tightly bound by Noah's noble artifact. She placed her hand on the hilt of the sword at her waist and pulled it out. AIC's expression changed slightly. AIC's expression changed slightly. At this moment, there were 2 scabbards at A's waist. One of them contained A's original weapon. The other one contained the sword in the stone. A's had pulled out the sword in the stone. Holding the dazzling sword of the king, A's walked step by step toward the Minotaur. The Minotaur seemed to have sensed the fatal danger and struggled even more frantically. However, no matter how frantically the Minotaur struggled, it was still unable to break free from the sturdy chains. Poochie! Without any suspense, the sword in the stone pierced through the Minotaur's heart. The Minotaur's roar came to an abrupt end. Pung! The sturdy body suddenly turned into a cloud of dust and disappeared. Seeing that Ace did not hesitate to kill the Minotaur, Noah understood. It seemed that the Minotaur had come to the 7th level because of the adventurers of Loki's family. As expected, nothing good happens every time I meet you. Noah's furrowed brows relaxed and he smacked his lips. No, it's better to leave first. After saying that, Noah wanted to call Bale. However, when he saw Bale's current appearance, he was stunned. This was because at this moment, Bale's face was smeared with red. He stared blankly at Ace and murmured as if he was in a dream. It's really a chance encounter. The corner of Noah's mouth twitched. He really wanted to beat this guy up. Chapter 872. Perhaps it was because of the sudden appearance of the LV2 Minotaurus on this floor. The monsters that were supposed to be on this floor seemed to have been driven away, causing the air to be filled with an indescribable silence. Wang! The silver chains that bound the Minotaurus slowly turned into light particles and dissipated into the air along with the golden ripples that were contracting in the air. AIC turned around and looked at Noah after the golden ripples and silver chains had completely disappeared. Her usually expressionless face showed some hesitation, but she still asked Noah with trepidation. Are you guys alright? The one who answered AIC's question wasn't Noah, but the displeased Bert. Even Goliath was killed. If this kid were to die in the hands of a Minotaurus, it would be a joke. As he said that, Bert glanced at Bale, who was standing beside Noah and looking at Ace in a daze. Bale's face was flushed red, and he looked a little embarrassed. Of course, the white-haired kid over there is another matter. If not for him, he would have died in the hands of the Minotaurus and been eaten clean. Bale came back to his senses and recalled the ferocious monster that was roaring at the sky. Now he felt some lingering fear. Indeed, if Noah had not been there, Bale, a novice adventurer, would definitely have been gnawed to the bone. Unless he escaped. Originally, Bale was still looking forward to the dungeon and hoped to find a chance encounter there. Now Bale, who was naive, finally understood what kind of place he was in and what kind of dream he was having. The thought of what would happen to him if Noah wasn't around made Bale, who had a timid personality, turn pale. What's the matter with that Minotaurus? Noah ignored Bert's harsh tone and looked directly at AIC. The Minotaurus that crossed so many floors to reach the 7th floor must have something to do with you, right? Sorry. AIC lowered her head slightly like a child who was about to be scolded by her parents. Her pretty face was filled with dejection. We encountered a group of Minotaurus on our way back from the expedition. We were halfway through the battle when the Minotaurus fled. With just this sentence, Noah understood more than half of the situation. I see. So that's why a Minotaurus ran to the 7th floor without a reason? You Loki clan really know how to make trouble for people. AIC lowered her head even more, and even Bert seemed to be choking and unable to speak. The Minotaurus's escape? Minotaurus and fled to another floor? This wasn't to be joked. There were other adventurers in the dungeon. However, not all adventurers were as powerful as Noah, AIC, and Bert. For an adventurer like Bale, whose strength was not on par with the Minotaurus, it would be a nightmare if he encountered a large group of Minotaurus. If many adventurers were unable to return because of the Rocky clan, then presumably the clan of the guild and other factions would definitely not sit back and do nothing, right? If not for Noah, Bale might have really died in the hands of the Minotaurus. It was no wonder AIC and Bert had chased after him in such a hurry. I'm sorry. AIC apologized again, her voice filled with dejection, coupled with her pitiful face. Even Noah couldn't bear to see her like this. If even Noah was like this, what more Bale? That. Bale blushed and said shyly, please raise your head. Seeing Bale's love-struck expression, Noah couldn't bear to look at him. It couldn't be helped. It was too embarrassing. Though he knew that Bale had a dream of finding a chance encounter in the dungeon, he didn't expect him to treat his encounter with AIC as a chance encounter. What happened to saving the princess in the Devil King's castle? What happened to saving a beauty in the witch's forest? There wasn't a hero saving the damsel in distress scenario. Yet he treated this as a chance encounter. Noah was speechless. Forget it. Since a large group of Minotaurus rushed into the dungeon, it's probably not suitable for combat training. Let's call it a day. Noah sighed faintly. I hope you can deal with the aftermath properly. It's best not to let any victims appear. AIC nodded repeatedly, causing Bert to snort and turn his head away. Then Noah turned around and saw Bale, who was shyly looking at AIC. His eyelids twitched. Bale, it seems like you can't bear to leave this place. I won't force you. I hope you won't encounter a second Minotaurus. After saying that, Noah walked toward the entrance to the 6th floor without looking back. Bale was shocked. He didn't hesitate and quickly chased after Noah. Leader, wait for me. After a while, Noah and Bale disappeared from AIC's and Bert's sight. Tisk. Bert smacked his lips. He actually has the time to care about such a small fry. How carefree. After saying that, Bert turned around and walked in another direction. Hey AIC, don't dilly-dally there. There are other Minotaurus waiting for us to deal with. AIC nodded her head in silence. However, she kept looking forward, tightly gripping the dazzling sword in the stone in her hand. After a long time, she turned around and walked in the other direction. Leader! Leader! Bale shouted excitedly as soon as he walked out of the Tower of Babel and arrived at the central square. Look, we can really find a chance encounter in the buried city. You really can't learn your lesson. Noah sighed as he walked forward. Don't tell me you still want to go to the lower floors? Do you really want to meet a monster like the Minotaurus again? The excitement on Bale's face froze, and his excitement died down. That's true. I don't object to you continuing to have such thoughts, but Belle, you'd better figure out what you're capable of, Noah said bluntly. Even if you want to go to the lower floors, you have to wait until you have the corresponding strength. Otherwise, even if you meet a level 1 adventurer like Ace Wallenstein who has the strength of LV5, do you have the courage to go up and pursue her? As Noah's realistic words came out, Bale's mood became more and more depressed. In the end, he almost burst into tears. I know you're looking forward to those stories where the hero saves the damsel in distress, and I've never thought of denying it. However, I don't agree with you biting off more than you can chew. Noah glanced at Bale. After all, the hero saves the damsel in distress, but you haven't become a hero yet. After that, Noah did not say anything else. Only Bale was left, his head lowered as he fell into deep thought and self-reflection. On this day, Noah and Bale did not hide in the buried city all day long. Instead, they spent a leisurely day. The next day, when Noah was still asleep, he heard a sorrowful cry, which woke him up in fright. He bounced up from the bed abruptly. This is Bale's voice? Noah hurriedly got up and opened the door in a flurry. Bang! Almost at the same time, the door to the room on the right side of Noah was also forcefully opened. Hestia also rushed out of the room with an anxious look on her face. Her hair was loose and she didn't tie up her waist-length hair. What's wrong? What's going on? Apparently, Hestia was also startled awake. Then, Noah and Hestia saw the situation in the hall clearly. Bale, who was in casual clothes, was hiding in the corner and looking in the direction of the door with a red face. There were 2 girls there. One of them had tied her red hair into a ponytail. The other had long, flowing blonde hair. Hestia exclaimed in surprise. Loki! Noah was also stunned. AIC Wallenstein? It was Loki and AIC. Chapter 873. In the hall, Hestia and Loki were sitting face to face, separated by a table. At this time, the 2 goddesses were staring at each other fiercely, as if they wanted to swallow each other alive. They seemed to have a deep hatred for each other. Behind Hestia and Loki, Bale and AIC stood respectively. AIC was expressionless as usual, but she seemed to be interested in this house. She was secretly looking left and right, curiously sizing up the surroundings. Bale was also secretly sizing up the area in front of him. To be more precise, he was secretly looking at AIC. His face was red and he was bashful, just like a typical innocent young man. Noah was the only one who sat next to Hestia and Loki, who were glaring at each other fiercely. He rested his chin on his hand and looked at Hestia and Loki for a while. After a long time, he spoke as if he was tired of it. After a while, he finally said, How long are you going to keep this up? Of course. Hestia answered without hesitation. After this airport leaves, of course. Who are you calling an airport? Loki almost exploded. You are a poor dwarf who can't even afford a glass of wine. How dare you laugh at me? I'm not a poor dwarf. Hestia raised her head and puffed out her chest proudly. I've been reborn a long time ago. My Noah is good at making money. Even your base camp is such a shabby little house. How dare you say that you've been reborn? Loki raised his chin with an arrogant look. My family tribe is more than enough to house 1,000 people. If I want, I can live on the top floor of the Tower of Babel at any time. A poor dwarf like you won't be able to live there for the rest of your life. It's only a matter of time. Hestia was not affected by Loki's words at all. She was still holding her head high. With my Noah's ability, he could deal with Warren even before receiving the favor. When he becomes a level 1 adventurer like LV5 or even LV6, even Eulalie's ultimate weapon won't be able to do anything to my Noah. At that time, I can live in a base camp that can accommodate 1,000 people or on the top floor of the Tower of Babel. Huh? Don't make me laugh. Rocky was not to be outdone. Do you think that LV5 or even LV6 is something that can be easily promoted? I say, Loki, you're still a god, right? Hestia mocked back. Do you really think that my Noah can't reach LV5 or LV6? If you really think so, then do I have to question your judgment as a god? Loki's face began to twist. However, Hestia was right. As long as one knew Noah's ability, no matter who it was, no one would doubt that Noah could reach LV5 or even LV6. What was needed to level up was a great achievement, and even the gods had to praise it. Noah was able to force Ace, who was at LV5, to retreat before receiving the favor. In terms of great achievements, it was amazing enough. With such strength, Noah had no difficulty in challenging high-level opponents when he was at a low level. He could also continue to build such a great achievement as defeating high-level opponents at a low level. At that time, the EXP obtained would definitely be the highest level. If it was used to level up, it would be more than enough to reach LV5 or even LV6. After all, before receiving the grace, Noah was already able to force Ace, who could be said to be the strongest existence in LV5, to retreat. After receiving the grace, it was impossible for him to not be able to do it, right? Then, before reaching LV5, Noah could always obtain such a great achievement as defeating high-level opponents at a low level. Reaching LV5 was only a matter of time. It was almost certain that he would reach LV6. As a god, it was impossible for Loki not to understand this. Loki just didn't want Hestia to be too proud. You poor little dwarf. With a twitching face, Loki said hatefully. It's just good luck to dig up a treasure, it should have been mine. At this time, Loki was really regretting it. As soon as the expeditionary force led by Finn returned to Eulalia, Loki learned about Noah's deeds in the underground city from a group of children. He could easily kill the floormaster equivalent to LV4. Even the elves didn't resist the pure heart. A magic sword that will never be worn out. An independent space that can store items. The incredible deeds made Rocky's heart feel like it was being scratched by a cat. He felt excited, interesting, and at the same time deeply regretful. Why couldn't he dig up Noah at that time? Undoubtedly, Loki was the first person Noah discovered after he came to Eulalia. Wasn't he? As a result, such a treasure was taken away by someone else. And it was taken away by Hestia, who had always been against him. Loki really wanted to hit the wall. This kind of mood made Loki unwillingly question Noah, who was beside him, with a look of annoyance. Why did you choose this poor little dwarf? Where can I not compare with this poor little dwarf? Hearing this, Noah glanced at Loki and said such a sentence with a smile. Her figure is better than yours. At this moment, everyone present seemed to have heard a poochy sound, as if a sharp weapon had pierced through someone's body. Of course, there was no such sound. As for why, Noah's words were like an arrow that pierced Loki's heart. It was absolutely impossible to hear such a sound. It was such a sentence that made Loki, who had been arrogant until now, seem to have suffered a heavy blow. He lowered his head, and his whole body was surrounded by an atmosphere that was more sorrowful than the death of his heart. Ha 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 ha. Hestia, on the other hand, laughed proudly. She even puffed out her chest and deliberately emphasized her unscientific upper body. Even Ace frowned and couldn't help but put her hand on her chest. Bale, who had been secretly looking at Aith, instantly blushed and almost spat out steam. Okay, stop fooling around. Noah sighed and went straight to the point. Tell us, why did you come to find us? Everyone in Eulalia knew that Hestia and Loki didn't get along well. Since that was the case and Loki had personally come to this house, which was equivalent to Hestia's headquarters, he couldn't have come just to quarrel with Hestia, right? Truth be told, Loki didn't want to come here. The person who wanted to come here was Aith. Aith, who was standing behind Loki, silently took out the sword in the stone that was in a scabbard from her waist. She walked up to Noah and looked at him. She held the sword in the stone in its scabbard and handed it to Noah. I'm here to fulfill my promise. More than a month ago, Noah had lent the sword in the stone to Aith on the 18th floor of the underground city. At that time, Noah said that Aith would give him an answer after she experienced the power of the sword in the stone. In the end, did Aith want to become stronger or did she want power? Aith was undoubtedly here to answer this question. This sword is really very powerful, Aith said sincerely. She also said something shocking. With it, I defeated the floor master of the 37th floor. Aith's words caused Bale and Hestia to suck in a breath of cold air. Defeated the floor master of the 37th floor? Even Noah was slightly surprised, let alone Bale and Hestia. The 37th floor. Noah had been there more than once. He was very clear about the level of monsters on that floor. On the 37th floor, there were not only LV3 monsters but also LV4 monsters. The level of the floor master was 2 levels above the level of the monsters on that floor. Generally speaking, the 2 levels were added to the monsters on that floor with the highest level. In other words, the level of the floor master of the 37th floor was 2 levels above LV4. Thus, the level of the floor master of the 37th floor was obvious. LV6. Aith had defeated the LV6 floor master. Chapter 874. Originally, in this world, the gap between levels was not so easy to fill. To put it bluntly, 10 LV1s could not defeat a LV2s, not to mention the gap between levels. And the 10 LV1s here were all LV1s who had reached the level of AB stage in all aspects, while the LV2s had just started to level up and their basic abilities were reset to 0. One could only imagine how big the gap between the levels was. So when Noah forced Aith to retreat without receiving the favor, even Loki was shocked. Bert kept saying that he couldn't accept it and even Finn tried to test it because of this. So, how big was the gap between LV5 and LV6? If one were to describe it in one sentence, then even if it wasn't the difference between heaven and earth, and it wasn't to the point of making one feel despair, it was still very shocking. Not to mention if this LV6 was a floor master with amazing ability, then it was even more amazing. Just like Goliath, although his level was only LV4, but his strength and durability were enough to match LV5 or even LV6. The 37th floor master must have exceeded the scope of LV6 in some places. Therefore, generally speaking, within the same level, it was impossible for an adventurer to defeat a floor master alone, let alone challenge a higher level. However, Aith did it. With the level of LV5, she challenged a LV6 floor master and won. This great achievement was definitely enough to let Aith rise to LV6. That's right. Loki seemed to have found a chance to fight back. He jumped up and laughed at Hestia. Just yesterday, Aith's level rose, and now it is a veritable LV6. LV6. Hestia was speechless as if she had swallowed a fly. Bale looked at Aith blankly, as if he finally understood the gap between Aith and himself. He no longer hesitated, but lowered his head, and his expression became uncertain. Only Noah looked straight at Aith, who was holding the sword in the stone, and asked, "You have released the true name of the sword in the stone?" AIC nodded. In other words, during the battle with the owner of the 37th floor, AIC had used the golden sword of victory, Caliban, relic. With the help of a relic that was at least grade A, she was able to kill the owner of the LV6 floor. It was precisely because she had experienced the true power of the sword in the stone that AIC could say those words. This magic sword really won't wear out, and it won't even have any wear and tear. Thanks to it, I was able to defeat the floor master of the 37th floor without much damage and rise to LV6. AIC gently stroked the sword in the stone that had accompanied her for more than a month. However, Reveria said that although this magic sword won't wear out, it requires a lot of mental energy. I've only used it once and that time I almost fainted. In this world, when using magic, one's mental strength had to be converted into mana in order to successfully use magic. And releasing the true name of the relic would undoubtedly consume an excessive amount of mana. AIC didn't have the same mana as Noah and the heroic spirits and magicians in the world of Type Moon. Therefore, when using the relic, the mana consumed would become the kind of mana that was converted from mental strength in this world. Naturally, if one used it excessively and consumed too much mental strength, they would fall into a state similar to coma. This was also the reason why people in this world needed to be cautious when using magic. However, since AIC had borrowed the power of the Golden Sword of Victory, Caliban, it was not impossible to defeat the LV6 floor owner. Originally, the relic was a trump card that was more like a trump card than the magic of this world. Even the heroic spirits relied on it, let alone AIC. In other words, you are very satisfied with the power of the sword in the stone, right? Noah didn't take the sword in the stone, but looked directly at AIC. Haven't you thought of monopolizing this power? Rocky was the first to frown when he heard this. Kid, what do you mean? Noah just smiled and didn't speak. He didn't even look at Loki. He just stared at AIC as if he wanted to see through her heart. AIC slightly tightened the grip of the sword in the stone and fell into silence. Seeing this, Noah curled his lips and smiled. That's right, you actually want this kind of power. You don't want to become stronger. You just want to obtain power. The whole place suddenly became silent. This time, even Loki didn't choose to speak and remained silent. On the contrary, AIC slowly relaxed her grip on the sword in the stone. After a while she spoke frankly. I do want power, not just to become stronger. Then the sword in the stone should be able to give you the power you want, right? Noah seemed to be guiding something as he smiled at AIC. Don't you want to get the sword in the stone? I do. This time, AIC answered without any hesitation. However, this is not mine. Noah did not say anything that sounded like an interrogation. Instead, he looked at AIC's clear eyes. AIC did not turn her gaze away. She met Noah's gaze and stared back at him. After a while, Noah suddenly smiled. You will become stronger, I guarantee it. AIC blinked her eyes and asked innocently. Really? Of course, Noah said. I can sense that you have an unparalleled thirst for power, but you haven't lost yourself because of it. You might force yourself and whip yourself endlessly in order to obtain power, but you won't sacrifice the important things around you or even in your heart in order to obtain power. Therefore, you will be very tired, you will fall, you will collapse because of excessive effort, but there will never be a time when you will feel regret or guilt. This way, you will definitely be able to become stronger. After saying that, Noah extended his hand to take the sword in the stone from AIC's hand. Then Noah said, Are you interested in AIC? Are you interested in trying another way to improve yourself that doesn't rely on God's grace? AIC's eyes flashed, and the light in them gradually brightened. Wait! Hestia hurriedly called out. Noah! What are you planning to do? That's right, that's right. Loki also shouted. What are you planning to do to my AIC? I say, what are you guys so nervous about? Noah rolled his eyes. I just want to teach her something. It's not like I want to eat her. Is there a need to be so nervous? Why do you want to teach this, Warren? Hestia said with dissatisfaction. You can teach Bale too. Belle. Noah glanced at Belle, whose face was full of anticipation, and laughed. It's still too early for him. Bale's head drooped in disappointment. I don't agree. Loki continued to shout. Although I'm interested in the other way to improve myself without relying on the grace of God, I don't need the grace of the poor shorty. I'm not teaching you, Noah asked strangely. Why would it become a grace for you? AIC is my baby, Loki said. If you give her grace, you are giving me grace. Noah was speechless. Loki, I also want to ask you. AIC couldn't help but speak up and said very sincerely to Loki. I really want to become stronger. Then why don't you use the grace I gave you to become stronger? Loki's narrowed eyes opened a little, revealing a pair of shrewd eyes. You have now risen to LV6 and are much stronger than before. You can continue to become stronger in the future. There is no need to use other methods to force yourself. Can't you use your own way to become stronger? Don't you believe in the grace I gave you? It's not like that, AIC said weakly. I just want to become stronger. Loki didn't know what to say. Under such circumstances, Noah smiled bitterly. Anyway, you are not in a hurry. Think about it carefully. AIC hesitated for a moment and could only nod. Hestia and Loki looked at each other, snorted and turned their heads away. Noah was helpless. Why do I feel like I can't get any benefits? Chapter 875. While Loki and Ace were on their way to visit Noah, Hesti, and Baal's base camp, Freya was in a room on the top floor of the towering Tower of Babel in the center of Orly. Freya had noticed what was happening almost immediately. The silver-haired goddess was standing in front of a glass window that was as magnificent as a wall. She was holding a glass of wine in her hand as she swirled the blood-red wine. Her lips curled into a smile, and her charming eyes curved into a crescent moon shape. The radiance of the swordswoman beside Loki has become even more dazzling. She must have leveled up to LV6, right? Freya's eyes could see through the souls of the people in the lower realm. Even though she could not see their ability value, she could roughly judge their level based on the strength and color of their souls. That was why Freya could tell that Ace had leveled up with just a glance. It's a pity that even though the swordswoman's radiance is very dazzling, she is still a far cry from him. Freya squinted her eyes with a smile as she conversed with the burly orc who stood in the corner of the room like a pillar. He stood there motionless like a statue, guarding Freya all the time. Otto, you think so too, don't you? Hearing Freya's words, the burly orc who was called Otto remained in his upright position as he stared at his most revered goddess. He was silent for a while before he spat out a steely and powerful voice. I can't see through everything about others like my lord, so naturally I can't make a positive answer. But last time, if a LV6 and 4 LV5s on our side couldn't deal with him, then it's natural that the glory of Swordswoman, who had just reached LV6, can't compare with him. When he said this, the orc's tone did not change at all. It was as if the LV6 was not even worth mentioning in Otto's eyes. But if it was someone who had heard of the name Otto, they would not think that there was a problem. If there was a reason, it would be that although it was not to the extent that it was not worth mentioning, the orc named Otto did indeed have the qualifications to look down on a LV6. That's true. Freya glanced at the orc and said with a faint smile, since even you, the only one who broke through LV6 and reached LV7, known as Eulalie's ultimate weapon, said so, then even I can't find any words to refute. The only LV7, Orly's ultimate weapon. Otto, the orc who was known as the strongest existence in Orly, lowered his head slightly and said without a trace of confusion, my meager strength is just a little bit of light to set off the beauty of the goddess. When she heard this, Freya slowly opened her half-closed eyes and turned her head to look at Otto with an interested smile on her face. I didn't expect that a pure martial artist like you would actually have a time when you would compliment me. Are you worried that I would give all my love to that child? Otto's expression did not change in the face of Freya's teasing and probing words. He only said this one sentence. I still believe that your love is equal to everyone. There is only uniqueness, and there is no superiority or inferiority. Otto said this sentence without the slightest hesitation. Obviously, this was the truest thought in Otto's heart. Even if your love is with someone else, your love for us will not disappear. Otto said calmly, I believe that. The room fell into an indescribable silence. Freya merely stared at Otto as she asked nonchalantly, even if I am obsessed with that child and ignore all of you who worship me, is it still the same? Yes. Otto's answer was still without the slightest hesitation. In fact, in the past you have fallen in love with many people, but you have never abandoned your love for us. The goddess of love and beauty, Freya. To put it bluntly, this goddess was simply a goddess who had been crowned with beauty and had madly immersed herself in the thing called love. In the past, this goddess had more than once been obsessed with people with beautiful souls and did not hesitate to use any means to bring them into her embrace. This included the strong orc named Otto, and even the members of Freya's family. Almost all of them had accepted Freya's love. The love of the goddess named Freya was very noble, because only those with extremely pure and dazzling souls could receive Freya's love. The love of the goddess named Freya was also very cheap. because as long as the soul was extremely pure and dazzling, the goddess would take a fancy to anyone, no matter who it was. They would receive Freya's love. Therefore, the love of the goddess of beauty Freya was both noble and cheap. Moreover, Freya had never kept her chastity. To put it bluntly, Freya's promiscuity was a fact that had long been known in the world of gods. But Otto, who was obsessed with this goddess, treated this as a quality, as universal love. In fact, it was a little unflattering. But it had to be said that from this perspective, it could be said that Freya's love had never disappeared. No matter how many people she had doted on. Otto believed this firmly. However, in the next moment, Freya turned her head and looked outside the glass window. She looked at the place that was as dazzling as the sun, and said these words. Unfortunately, Otto, this time you will be disappointed. Otto's expression did not change, but he looked up. Under Otto's gaze, Freya placed one hand on the glass window. Her beautiful face slowly turned red, as if she was obsessed, and said these words. That's a brilliance that I've never seen before. It's also a dazzling degree that I've never seen before. I'm sure that even when this world is destroyed, he's the only one who has such a soul. That's why I can go crazy for him. I don't even mind sacrificing my beauty, my love, my body, and my feelings. Freya turned her gaze to Otto. The smile on her face was beautiful and cruel. Then it is needless to say about you all, do you understand? Meeting Freya's gaze, Otto stared blankly at his most revered goddess. After a while, he lowered his head. Oh, yes. Ha ha. Freya pursed her lips into a smile. Her face was still red, as if the conversation just now had aroused her inner possessiveness. She closed her eyes. But at first, I wanted to observe this incredible child for a while before deciding how to dote on him. But now, Hestia has him, Loki seems to have taken a liking to him, and even the swordswoman is by his side. I can't wait any longer. After saying this, Freya's eyes turned. She suddenly thought of something and smiled. Otto, tell the children to prepare for a banquet. A banquet? Otto was stunned, but the next second, he calmed down and lowered his head to obey the order. Understood. May I ask who the guests are? As long as it is a god in Eulalia, including their children. Freya's smile grew brighter. Also, you can leave out anyone's invitation, but not Hestia's. Do you understand? Yes. After a short reply, Otto walked out of Freya's room. In the quiet room, Freya once again gazed at the source of the dazzling light. She smiled as if she was drunk on it. I'm looking forward to meeting you. The next day. When Noah came out of the room, Hestia was already sitting on the sofa, staring at an envelope on the table in front of her. Her brows were deeply furrowed, as if she was very distressed. Noah was surprised to see Hestia like this. Did Hestia also know how to make such an expression? Noah walked towards Hestia and asked curiously, "What's wrong? Why do you look so distressed?" Noah? Hestia raised her head and looked at Noah. The distress on her face didn't decrease but instead increased. This made Noah even more curious. What made Hestia so distressed? Chapter 876. Sitting on the sofa, Hestia crossed her arms as if she was emphasizing her impressive bosom. Her eyes were fixed on an envelope on the table in front of her. She seemed to be in distress. When Noah saw that Hestia didn't seem to have any intention of speaking, he turned to look at the envelope that Hestia was staring at and picked it up. What's this? I haven't opened it yet, Hestia said. But I guess it's an invitation. An invitation? Noah turned his eyes to Hestia. What kind of invitation letter? An invitation from a god. Hestia sighed. To be more precise, it's an invitation to a banquet held by a god. A banquet of a god. Noah was a little surprised. The so-called god's banquet, to put it bluntly, was a gathering held by the gods who descended from the heaven realm to the lower realm. The gods descended to the mortal world to relieve boredom, find excitement, and have entertainment that couldn't be found in the heavens. A banquet held by a god and invited other gods to have fun together was very common in Eulalia, and even in the whole world. Simply put, a banquet was held by a god to relieve boredom and find entertainment. Therefore, there were almost no rules about which god would hold the banquet and which day it would be held. If a god was bored and wanted to hold a banquet, he would hold one. If a god wanted to participate in a banquet and find entertainment, he would attend. The capriciousness and freedom of the gods could be seen from this. Of course, after a god came to the mortal world, he couldn't even use his divine power and had to live like an ordinary person. Naturally, there would be restrictions on his life. For example, before Hestia met Noah, she didn't have a family tribe or work. So there were many gods who were called poor gods. Even if a family tribe was established, the power and strength of the family tribe were very different. Even if some gods wanted to hold a banquet, they didn't have the financial resources. Therefore, most of the gods who held banquets were powerful gods who wanted to show off their status more or less. Since Hestia had received an invitation, it meant that another god was going to hold a banquet. In other words, you just received an invitation to attend the banquet, right? Noah felt a little strange. It's just a banquet. Is there a need to be so distressed? Indeed, the banquets of the gods are held every once in a while. I have received many invitations, so there's nothing strange about this. Hestia reached out her hand and took the envelope from Noah's hand, looking at him with a serious expression. What's strange is that the clan hosting the banquet is Freya's clan. Noah's eyes slightly blinked when he heard the word clan from Hestia's mouth. Freya's family. One of the two most powerful clans in Eulalie's clan. Together with the Loki clan, they were known as the two kings of Olalai. The main god of the clan is not an ordinary god, but a beautiful one, Hestia explained. She has the ability to charm people regardless of gender, race, and even gods can be charmed without exception. She is the embodiment of beauty. That is the beauty goddess. I know that. Noah scratched his cheek. But what's so special about the banquet hosted by the beauty goddess? It's not that it's special. Hestia crossed her arms again, a little distressed. It's just that Freya usually stays at the top of Babel and never shows herself in front of the crowd. I'm just wondering why such a god would suddenly hold such a banquet. That's it? Noah said helplessly. There's nothing to worry about, right? Maybe it's just a whim? Maybe. Hestia frowned. But I don't have a good impression of Freya. What's wrong? Noah asked in confusion. Do you have a bad relationship with her? Rather than a bad relationship, it's better to say that I'm afraid of her one-sidedly. Hestia pouted. Listen up, Noah, all beautiful gods are not to be trifled with. Just like the elves, they have the bad habit of treating other races as ugly existences. Beautiful gods who have worse looks than the elves also have more or less twisted parts, just to different degrees. To be honest, I really don't want to have anything to do with a goddess like Freya. Despite saying that, Hestia still opened the envelope in her hand and took out the invitation letter. After glancing at it, a trace of surprise appeared on her face. He could even bring along members of his clan to participate in it? What's going on? Even Noah was startled. Noah had heard that usually, members of the clan were not allowed to attend the banquets held by the gods. After all, it was a gathering of gods, and children were generally not allowed to attend. However, this time, the organizer seemed to have allowed the members of the clan tribe to participate. Even clan members are allowed to attend? Hestia threw the invitation letter in her hand on the table and said in a bored tone. It seems that this banquet will become a place for those people to show off their children. Seeing Hestia's lack of interest, Noah shook his head. Since you're so dissatisfied, why don't you just refuse? That's true. Hestia laid on the sofa like a child throwing a tantrum, constantly kicking her two white legs. But I've been looking forward to the next banquet. Looking forward to it? Noah was confused. How did it become looking forward to it? Hestia turned her head away and puffed up her cheeks as if she was throwing a tantrum. Because I really want to wear the gown you bought for me to a banquet. Ever since Noah bought her a dress as a gift, Hestia had been looking forward to the banquet hosted by some god. That way, Hestia could wear the dress Noah gave her and show off in front of those gods who used to laugh at her for not being able to afford a dress. It must be known that after Hestia descended to the mortal world, she would be mercilessly teased by those gods who liked to join in the fun almost every time she attended a banquet. They would say that she was so poor that she couldn't even afford a dress. She was simply a poor god. Therefore, Hestia had been looking forward to the banquet. She wanted to wear the dress Noah gave her and show off to those gods who made fun of her. Noah also inadvertently heard that some gods had been laughing about Hestia in their clan, so he wanted to prepare a dress for Hestia. In that case, it doesn't matter if I attend the banquet once, right? Noah couldn't help but smile. The goddess you are afraid of is the organizer. You are definitely not the only god who will be invited. When the time comes, she will need to host the banquet and entertain so many guests. In addition, she is also a beautiful goddess who is admired by everyone. She will definitely have a lot of social activities. She may not necessarily have to deal with you. It doesn't matter if I attend the banquet once, right? Well, that's true. Hestia's expression became cheerful, and then she said to Noah with a smile, "Well, Noah, you should also prepare a dress and attend the banquet with me." Me? Noah didn't expect that Hestia would lead the topic to him. I'm going too? Of course, Hestia said matter-of-factly. The higher-ups clearly said that we need to bring members of the family clan. Those gods who are invited will definitely bring the most outstanding children of the family clan to show off. When the time comes, if I don't bring members of the family clan, I will definitely be ridiculed for not having children who are presentable. Noah was a little uncertain. What about Baal? Baal is just a novice adventurer. If I bring him, I will only be made fun of. Hestia stood up from the sofa, put her hand on Noah's shoulder, and said earnestly, "If you don't go with me, I will definitely be made fun of by those heartless gods." Noah smiled bitterly. How could he get involved in this? If he had known, he would have just asked Hestia to refuse. Chapter 877. Night fell in Orally, where there was never a lack of excitement. At a corner of Eulalie, in front of a luxurious palace, a group of well-dressed figures were chatting and laughing as they made their way towards the grand entrance. Some of these people were gods, some were humans, some were elves, some were dwarves, some were orcs, and some were even Amazons. They all wore formal clothes and looked very grand. Under such circumstances, a carriage slowly came to a stop in front of the palace. Immediately, Noah got off the carriage. Looking carefully, Noah was wearing a black tuxedo. The color of the tuxedo was deeper than the surrounding darkness. Together with Noah's dark hair and pupils, he looked like an existence born of the night. People couldn't help but sigh that there was such a deep color in the world. In addition, Noah himself had an extremely otherworldly temperament and an aura that made people feel calm. This caused many gods and people in the surroundings to look over and take a few extra glances at Noah. After getting off the carriage, Noah looked around, then turned around and reached inside the carriage. Not long after, a slender hand reached out of the carriage and put it on Noah's hand. She lifted the curtain and slowly got off the carriage. That person was none other than Hestia. If Hestia was said to be amiable and approachable, then today she was a real noble princess. A pure white dress tightly wrapped around Hestia's petite body, exposing her soft shoulders and white thighs. There were many decorations on the corners of the dress, like 100 folds of lace, giving people a sense of elegance. There were 2 long ribbons hanging down from her waist like a big bow. Her waist-length hair, which was usually tied into 2 ponytails, was completely untied. It hung down like a waterfall, swaying back and forth in the dark night, giving people a dazzling feeling. As the saying goes, people need clothes and Buddha needs gold. Although the so-called gods were all transcendent existences with extraordinary appearances, if they dressed like men all day long like Loki, then no matter how outstanding their appearance was, it would more or less be covered up. The same was true for Hestia. Although she usually looked cute from her childish appearance, after putting on the dress, she was not only cute but also beautiful. Her amiable smile was very dazzling. I didn't expect that I would attend a banquet with a cute child one day. Perhaps it was because she had put on a formal dress, but she was in a very good mood. She even looked at Noah and praised him generously. Noah's dress is also very good. Even the gods can't find any fault with it. For a god like you to say that, there's no doubt about it. Noah smiled and praised him as well. You too, Hestia. You're very beautiful today. Is that so? Hestia smiled shyly. Sure enough, you still feel shy when praised by someone close to you. That proves that you have a lot of emotions. That's a good thing, unlike some gods with weird tempers. Not to mention praise, even compliments are taken for granted. They even think that they are infallible, right? Noah smiled. Then let's go in. Okay. Hestia's childish face was filled with an extremely beautiful smile. She put one hand on Noah's arm and walked toward the luxurious palace gate in front of her like a dance partner. What appeared in front of Noah and Hestia was a very gorgeous and luxurious palace. After walking through the gate, a bright hall with gorgeous lights appeared in front of everyone. At the front of the hall was a very luxurious staircase covered with a red carpet. Noah and Hestia stepped on the long staircase. After walking for a while, they arrived at the banquet hall on the second floor. At this time, most of the invited gods and humans should have arrived. At least, when Noah and Hestia arrived, the luxurious banquet hall was almost full of people. Magic stone lamps hung from the high ceiling like crystal chandeliers. Many long tables were arranged in a row in the corners of the banquet hall. There were delicacies that could not be found anywhere else on the tables. There was a tall window at the front of the hall, and there was a balcony that looked like an outdoor cafe. Here, famous adventurers could be seen everywhere. Sure enough, they've brought the most outstanding children from the clan tribe over. Seeing this scene, Hestia sighed as if she had seen through the world of mortals. Then she smiled at Noah. Fortunately, my Noah won't lose to anyone here. You're in a good mood today. You keep praising me. It makes me feel a little embarrassed, Noah said helplessly. Compared to that, I'm more curious. Is the headquarters of Freya's clan, one of the two most powerful clans in Eulalia, in this palace? Of course not. This facility is public property managed by the guild. It's only rented to clans or merchants who need it, Hestia said. For a banquet like this where a large number of gods are invited, no clan will directly hold it in their own base camp. Who knows when there will be a clan that will become the enemy's clan in the banquet? Noah nodded in understanding. However, at this moment, a sarcastic voice suddenly sounded. Even if you want to hold the banquet in your own headquarters, you need to have a headquarters that can hold the banquet. A poor dwarf like you can't even hold a banquet at home. Hearing this voice, Noah's helpless expression became even more intense. Hestia's face twitched, and the beautiful smile on her face collapsed as if she had met the god of plague. She narrowed her eyes and turned her head to look behind her. There, a beautiful woman in men's clothes was looking at Hestia from the corner of her eyes. Hestia was speechless when she saw the beautiful woman in men's clothes. Loki, it's you again? I should be the one saying that, little dwarf. Loki looked Hestia up and down and mocked her again. You're wearing a formal dress? You look like a child wearing an adult's clothes. You're so stupid. You're the one who's not qualified to talk about me. Hestia retorted, not to be outdone. You're wearing men's clothes? Is it because some parts of your body won't be able to hold up in a formal dress? An airport. Who are you calling an airport? Ah! Like firewood and kerosene, Hestia and Loki would explode as soon as they came into contact with each other. They began to fight each other. Here they go again. Noah was speechless. He could only put his hand on his forehead and sigh. Then he turned his eyes away. At this moment, Noah finally noticed something. There was another person behind Loki. She was dressed in a light green gown that exposed her slender shoulders. Her body was adorned with exquisite embroidery and decorations, and her arms were covered in long silky gloves. Part of her long golden hair was tied up, and the rest of her hair fell behind her back. Below her waist, the gown that connected her upper body was spread open, and she looked like a princess who had walked out of the palace wearing a princess gown. That was naturally AIC. Perhaps it was because she was wearing a different outfit than usual, but AIC looked a little awkward. When she noticed Noah's gaze, the girl, who was usually expressionless and rarely showed any emotions, became very shy and even moved her body behind Loki. How should he put it? She was indescribably cute. At this moment there was a sudden uproar. Tisk! Hestia and Loki, who were quarreling, stopped at the same time and smacked their lips. The troublesome guy finally came. This is the only time we feel the same way. Hearing Hestia and Loki's whispers, Noah looked at the source of the noise and looked at the innermost part of the banquet hall. There he saw beauty. Chapter 878. At this moment the entire banquet hall, which was originally bustling with noise, suddenly fell into a deathly silence as if all the noise had been cut off. In the banquet hall, everyone, be it gods or humans, looked in one direction and fell into a state of absent-mindedness. This was because an existence that seemed to carry the dazzling light of the world had appeared in front of everyone. Clack, 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 clack. The sound of high heels hitting the ground echoed clearly in the silent banquet hall. Along with the clear sound of footsteps, a goddess with long silver hair that reached her waist appeared in front of everyone's eyes. She was a goddess with a beauty that even the gods could not compare to. She was wearing an extremely revealing gown, which perfectly displayed the beauty of her seductive and delectable body. The goddess who represented beauty was just walking there, but her every move seemed to be able to seduce people's hearts, causing them to fall into a dangerous situation where they would lose their minds and allow the most primitive impulse to control their bodies. At this moment, the goddess was undoubtedly the most dazzling and eye-catching existence in the hall. Under the goddess' radiance, the burly orc beside her, who would definitely be the first to attract people's attention, and whose entire body was filled with a terrifying sense of presence, had all the attention stolen away, causing people to subconsciously ignore him. Looking at the beautiful silver-haired goddess, Noah narrowed his eyes in the crowd. Is that the goddess of beauty, Freya? The goddess of beauty, Freya. Just like her divinity and divinity, this goddess represented beauty. The goddess of beauty was born with the ability to seize people's hearts and minds, and make them the captive of love. Even if she did not deliberately use her charm, the gods and humans around her still could not move their eyes away from Freya, and even blushed as if they were intoxicated, unable to recover from their daze. Although Noah was also looking at Freya, he was not captivated by her natural charm. That could be considered as a negative influence similar to curses, weakness, and poisoning, right? Thus, while many gods and humans were immersed in Freya's natural charm, Noah's heart was extremely calm and was not affected at all. However, others did not know that Noah was not affected at all. You can't look. Noah! Hestia screamed and threw herself in front of Noah. She raised her hands and waved them around in an attempt to stop Noah from looking at Freya. You can't look at the goddess like that. Otherwise, they would immediately become Freya's captive. You'll be charmed. Everyone in the banquet hall stared at Freya as she slowly walked into the hall, as if they were trying to prove that Hestia's words were true. They stood there in a daze, as if they had lost their souls. The same goes for you, Aston. Loki said to AIC, who was beside him, with an annoyed look. Although it's not as exaggerated as the males, you shouldn't keep staring at Freya. Otherwise, you'll be led by the nose by that love-struck fool. AIC nodded obediently and lowered her head, no longer looking at Freya. As for Noah, he helplessly stretched out his hand, grabbed Hestia's small hand that was constantly waving in front of him, and pressed it down. All right, I'm not affected by her charm. Really? Hestia stared at Noah's face. When she saw that Noah's expression was normal, she still shook her head worriedly. Just in case, you'd better not keep staring at Freya. Don't be tempted by that fickle goddess. Hearing this, Noah rolled his eyes. Just as he was about to say something, a burning gaze suddenly stopped on him. Noah's pupils constricted. Noah couldn't be more familiar with such a scorching gaze. Raising his head, Noah met the burning gaze. In the next moment, Noah's gaze met the owner of the burning gaze. Her silver eyes were fixed on Noah, and there was an unconcealable passion and intoxication in them. She was the goddess with a beautiful smile on her face. Looking at Freya's seductive smile and her burning gaze, Noah did not have the slightest emotion. Instead, he narrowed his eyes and sneered. Found you. Just from this gaze, Noah could be sure. Freya was the one who had been staring at him with a scorching gaze that made his hair stand on end. Freya was the one who had ordered the LV6 Catmen and the 4 LV5 dwarfs to attack him. And once Freya's gaze landed on Noah, it did not move away. Her beautiful face turned red at a speed visible to the naked eye. Freya had always thought that when she saw Noah, she would still be able to keep her cool. However, Freya, who saw the glory of the soul as her lifelong pursuit, and Noah, who always had a soul that made her crazy, lost all her calmness in an instant. There was only one thought left in her mind. Get him. No matter what, she had to get him. A crazy desire to possess him attacked Freya's heart. Freya, who had originally planned to give a speech in front of the gods as the organizer, could no longer care about anything else. She lifted her feet and walked in the direction of Noah. Behind Freya, The strong orc Otto seemed to have discovered Freya's intention. He opened his mouth and wanted to say something, but chose to swallow his words. He silently followed behind Freya, staring at Noah in front of him, and did not move his gaze away. Just like that, wherever Freya and Otto passed, the crowd would automatically disperse and make a path for them. Not long after, Freya, who was leading Otto, stopped in front of Noah and the rest. She looked at Noah with an infatuated expression. Loki, who noticed Freya's behavior, was speechless as if he had eaten something bad. "I see. This time you've taken a fancy to this little guy? You hopeless love-struck fool." Freya. Hestia also stared at Freya and shouted loudly, "What do you want?" Freya ignored Loki and Hestia. She didn't even care about Otto behind her. She only had Noah in her eyes. Her beautiful eyes flickered with an intoxicating light. Then Freya smiled. In that instant, everyone who saw Freya's smile widened their eyes, and they were all stunned, including Hestia, Loki, and Ace. Charm. Freya finally could not help but use her charm ability. She only had one goal. "You are mine." Freya spoke fanatically like a fanatic. With an intoxicated expression, she reached out a hand to Noah, intending to caress his cheek. "Come, follow me. Come to my side and never leave me." The charm of the goddess of beauty enveloped everyone present in the most direct way. Those who were caught by this charm would all become captives who were madly in love with Freya. Fortunately, Freya's charm was not directed at the people around her. Otherwise, everyone here would have become Freya's toys. Freya actually used her charm ability in front of almost all of Eulalia's minions, and even affected everyone present. No matter how beautiful Freya was, she would be condemned after this, right? Freya could not possibly not understand this. However, Freya did not care about that anymore. With such a close proximity to the soul that made her crazy, Freya had completely lost herself. If Freya's charm was to make everyone her captive, then under the dazzling brilliance of Noah's unparalleled soul, Freya was the first to become his captive. So Freya did not care about anything else. As long as she could have Noah, Freya felt that it was worth it, no matter what the consequences were. Unfortunately, Freya did not notice. Everyone present was captivated by Freya's charm ability. They were unable to control themselves and stood there in a daze, unable to do anything. Noah was the only one who didn't seem to be in a trance. There was only indifference. Chapter 879. Pa-dash. When all the gods and humans in the banquet hall were immersed in Freya's charm and were unable to extricate themselves, an extremely crisp sound suddenly rang out, jolting all the gods and humans out of their daze. However, when everyone woke up from their daze and saw the source of the crisp sound, everyone, be it god or human, was stunned. Freya, who had a dazzling smile on her face and was about to reach out to touch Noah's cheek, was stunned. They were completely dumbfounded. Because the crisp sound was caused by Noah waving his hand and slapping away Freya's hand that was reaching for his cheek. The charm of a beautiful goddess was rejected. That was why Freya was stunned, and so was everyone else. The entire banquet hall fell into a dead silence. Under such circumstances, Noah, who was looking at Freya's frozen beautiful smile, suddenly chuckled and said in an indifferent tone, "I'm sorry, I don't want to be touched by people who use despicable means, even if they are gods." That one sentence turned the deathly silent atmosphere in the banquet hall into a downright heavy atmosphere. Freya just stared blankly at Noah and muttered almost subconsciously, "Why? Why wasn't I charmed by you?" Noah shook his head with a smile, but there was no smile in his eyes when he looked at Freya. "Because I haven't fallen to the point where I can be captured by such despicable means." When this sentence fell from Noah's mouth, Noah's expression suddenly froze. Whoosh! A huge fist suddenly brought along a sharp sound of wind. It was like a rock that shot out violently, causing the air to become chaotic. It suddenly blasted from the side without any warning, imprinting itself into Noah's eyes. Without any hesitation, Noah clenched his hand into a fist. With the same sharp sound of breaking wind, he met the huge fist that had entered his eyes. Bam! With a muffled sound, a violent impact force rose from the center of the two fists that collided with each other. It shook up a whirlwind, as if an invisible bomb had suddenly exploded, setting off an astonishing blast that spread out in all directions. The powerful force that was transmitted from the huge fist, which was as heavy as a rock, caused Noah to be gently pushed back. His toes repeatedly tapped on the ground, and he only came to a stop when he was pushed back by nearly 10 meters. This sudden development made all the gods and humans present, including Hestia, Aes, Loki, and Freya, unable to react. Noah slowly raised his head and looked at Otto, who was standing behind Freya like a steel tower. Compared to him, Otto had not even taken a single step back. A chilling glint gushed out from his pitch-black eyes. Although the previous blow was just a simple heavy punch, it could be seen from the fact that Noah was still pushed back more than 10 meters after blocking it. If he was hit squarely, even with the basic ability of durability, Noah would inevitably be injured. Therefore, while Noah was furious, he could not help but be a little surprised. After all, ever since he leveled up to LV2, Noah's physical ability was comparable to when he did not receive the grace, but used the enhanced magic. Under this level of strength, to be able to push Noah back so far with just one blow, unless the person had a powerful ability value comparable to Hercules' Berserker, it was really difficult to do so. At least, in Noah's opinion, it was absolutely impossible for a LV5 in this world to do so. Even a LV6 was a little difficult. Since the orc behind Freya could do it so easily, it was definitely not as simple as a LV5 or even a LV6. He belonged to the Freya clan, and his strength level was even higher than a LV6. The other party's identity was already obvious. Even if it was Noah who had been in this world for more than a month, it was impossible for him not to have heard of his name. The only LV7 in Eulalie, the strongest existence known as the ultimate weapon, also known as the Fierce One, Ota. Under Noah's gaze, Ota's rock-hard face became a little heavy. He stared at Noah and said emotionlessly, "That's right. I will not allow you to insult a noble goddess like me." Hearing this, Noah laughed. His laughter made Ota's pupils shrink. Bang! In the next instant, Noah abruptly shot out like an arrow. His feet stomped on the ground, and his body transformed into a black line as he shot towards Otto like a bolt of lightning. At the same time, on Noah's four limbs, a burst of magical power curled up and condensed into lines like electric wires. They covered Noah's limbs and gave Noah's limbs an astonishing amount of power. Ota keenly felt it. When the magical lines crawled up Noah's limbs, Noah's aura instantly increased by a lot. Furthermore, Otto already knew beforehand that Noah had the ability to easily dispose of a LV6 and 4 LV5s. He didn't dare to be careless in his heart. Clenching his pair of heavy fists that were as heavy as rocks, his sturdy body tensed up. He unreservedly unleashed the ferocious aura of Eulalie's only LV7. That aura made Aes, who had just leveled up to LV6, tremble. Her pupils involuntarily shrank. Under the watchful eyes of the gods and humans who had not yet reacted to the sudden development, the distance between Noah and Ota was infinitely reduced to 0. Almost as soon as he arrived in front of Ota, Noah's figure flashed, and extremely strangely darted to Ota's side. He clenched his right hand, and his fist was covered by a whirlwind of friction with the air. Carrying a ferocious aura, he mercilessly bombarded Ota's head. The force of the incoming heavy punch told Ota what it was. This fist, compared to the one he hastily used to block his own attack, was on a completely different level. However, Ota's face remained expressionless as he tensed up his body. His heavy fist suddenly smashed upwards, and fiercely collided with the incoming heavy fist. Bang! A muffled thunder-like sound that made one's heart contract fiercely resounded. Both Noah and Ota were simultaneously forced to take a step back. One of their feet involuntarily stepped back. However, when one of Otto's legs took a step backwards, Noah's leg that was also involuntarily taking a step backwards. Before it could land, Noah's body rotated with his other leg as the center, transforming into a heavy whip shadow. Swinging viciously through the air, it viciously sliced towards Otto's neck amidst the howling winds. Ota's expression changed, and he fiercely raised one arm to the side of his neck. Bang! The vicious shadow of a whip heavily landed on Ota's hastily raised arm, and another muffled thunder-like explosion resounded. This blow made Ota involuntarily take another step back. However, this blow also aroused the ferocity of Eulalie's ultimate weapon. As though returning an eye for an eye, Otto abruptly turned around as he retreated. His thick and muscular thigh transformed into a deadly shadow. Like a whistling windmill, he viciously kicked at Noah's head in front of him. In the face of that ruthless kick, Noah merely sneered. With a twist of his left hand, a resplendent vortex of air instantly appeared on the surface of his fist under the vibrations of the air. Then, it abruptly collided with Otto's foot. Bang! The collision of fist and leg caused a ferocious wind to sweep out like a storm. Crack! Instantly, the ground where Noah and Otto were standing was blasted apart by the berserk impact. Like a spider web, it rapidly spread out in all directions. Humph! This time Otto's arm was numbed by the powerful force. He let out a muffled groan and, like Noah, his entire body was forced back by the violent force of Noah's fist. Chapter 880. Dong 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 dong. This explosive boom was entirely caused by Otto's feet landing on the ground. After being knocked back by Noah's punch, Otto involuntarily retreated backwards. His footsteps pounded against the ground, shattering the hard floor with a loud bang. Unable to stop his retreating momentum, Otto could only use the powerful force to propel his sturdy body into the air. After flying a distance, he nimbly landed back on the ground with the help of gravity. After taking a few small steps back, he was finally able to neutralize the force. The banquet hall returned to silence once more. Not even a minute had passed since Otto had abruptly attacked Noah, and Noah had turned the tables on Otto. In this short span of less than a minute, Noah and Otto had engaged in a soul-stirring close combat that would leave all the experts in the world in the dust. That level of confrontation was completely beyond the reach of existences below LV6. Without a doubt, this was definitely the highest level of individual combat in this world. That was why the humans, elves, dwarves, orcs, and Amazons who were brought here by their own gods to watch the brief duel were all dumbfounded. As for the other gods, they widened their eyes. First, they glanced at the shattered floor caused by the collision between Noah and Otto. Then, they glanced at the distant confrontation between Noah and Otto. Shortly after, they exchanged glances with the gods beside them. In the next second, their faces flushed red. Oh! Excited cheers that shook the entire banquet hall rang out. That child! He was actually able to repel that fierce one. Even the ultimate weapon was repelled. He can even resist the charm of the beauty goddess. That child! Who the hell is he? I really want that child. Ah! For the gods who came down to the mortal realm to seek entertainment out of boredom, there was nothing more exciting than this. Therefore, all the gods were excited to the peak at this moment. Not to mention the gods who were watching the show, even Hasti and Loki were excited. The former was only excited because the person who was able to compete with Eulalia's only LV7, and even beat her back was a member of his own clan. The latter was excited like the other gods who loved to watch the show. Apart from that, she also felt a strong sense of regret. After all, Loki had met Noah earlier than Hasti. At that time, Noah had not received any favor, and had not joined any clan. If Loki had seized the opportunity at that time, then Noah would very likely have become a member of Loki's clan. Unfortunately, such a treasure had been taken away by the poor shorty that Rocky hated the most. Rocky couldn't be blamed for feeling so regretful. Only AIC looked at Noah with ripples in her eyes. He has become stronger again. As the people who made the gods around them fall into a frenzy of excitement, Noah and Otto were the calmest at the scene. As if all the movements around them were shielded, Noah and Otto looked at each other, one with a sneer on his face, the other with a heavy expression. After a long time, Otto spoke in a deep voice. "You are really strong." "Same to you." Noah's face was indifferent. "Eulalia's only LV7 is indeed extraordinary." This sentence was true. Although it was only a short duel, Noah already understood. Otto, who was at LV7, was definitely a match for Hercules, who had appeared as a berserker in the Holy Grail War in terms of ability value. If Noah had not reached LV2, the one who would have been repelled would not have been Otto, but Noah. However, after reaching LV2, coupled with the enhancement magic, Noah's physical ability was not weaker than Berserker, who he had fought before. In addition, Noah's punch was launched with the Annihilation Strike technique. Otto, whose physical ability was on par with Berserker, was repelled by Noah's punch. With the current strength, if Noah were to fight that great hero again, the one who would be at a disadvantage would not be him. It was only natural that Otto would be repelled. But Otto looked coldly at Noah. You shouldn't have insulted my noble goddess. Shouldn't have? Noah laughed sarcastically. But I did. What do you want me to do? What do you want me to do? Otto's face was stern. I want you to die as an apology. Following this fierce roar, a ferocious aura like that of a ferocious beast gushed out from Otto's body. Moreover, it grew denser and denser, causing the faces of those people in the banquet hall to slightly change from the pressure. Shortly after, Otto's feet landed on the ground with a loud rumble, causing spiderweb-like cracks to spread out on the ground. His body leaned forward, transforming into a sharp arrow as he shot explosively towards Noah. Wherever they passed, a gully was dug open. It was like a scar that was imprinted on the ground, causing the banquet hall to become a complete mess at this moment. Sensing the ferocious aura around Otto, Noah's eyes flashed, and a faint magic power rose from his body. In the blink of an eye, Otto appeared in front of Noah, raising his fist high. On his fist, a frantic wind swirled back and forth like a whirlpool, looking extremely frightening. Ha! With a stifled low roar, Otto's fist, which was filled with frantically swirling winds, was accompanied by a sonic boom as it ferociously smashed towards Noah's head. Looking at the fist that was getting closer and closer, and feeling the oppressive wind coming from it, Noah's dark and deep eyes flashed with a fierce light. In his heart, the stone plate that was connected to the outline of the 10 pictures began to flash with a bright light. Just as Otto's fist was about to land on Noah's head, and Noah was prepared to no longer hold back and use his true strength to smash Otto into pieces, a voice slowly rang out. Otto? That voice was softer than anything else. However, upon hearing this voice, Otto's figure fiercely froze. His ferocious fist stopped less than 5 centimeters away from Noah's face. The wind it carried caused Noah's bangs to flutter. As if nothing had happened, the ferocious aura on Otto's body completely disappeared. His body also slowly relaxed. Withdrawing his fist, he expressionlessly retreated. Seeing this, Noah's brows furrowed. He turned his head and looked towards the source of the voice. There, the silver-haired goddess was staring at Noah with eyes more fervent than ever. She took a deep breath and smiled. My apologies, my follower was rude. Those words seemed calm, but anyone could hear the fanaticism in them. Ha ha! Freya's beautiful smile made the surrounding people gulp. It was as if she only had eyes for Noah. She said in an intoxicated manner, I'm really sorry. Originally, I didn't want to use such a method to get you. But once I saw you, I completely lost my cool. Fortunately, charm doesn't work on you. As expected of the man I love deeply. I want you more and more. Freya's undisguised love for him caused the surrounding gods and humans to cast their gazes on Noah. Their eyes were filled with envy, jealousy, and hatred, as well as surprise and admiration. Obviously, no one would have thought that the goddess of beauty, Freya, would confess her love for Noah here. But Noah's face was cold. He mercilessly retorted to Freya's perverted passion. Then I'm really sorry. I have no interest in you at all. You'd better go home and eat by yourself. After saying this, Noah walked towards the entrance of the banquet hall under the stunned gazes of the surrounding gods and humans. Hestia, Loki, and Aes followed him without hesitation. Freya did not say anything to stop him. She continued to stare at Noah's back with a fervent gaze. Her face gradually flushed red. You're mine. You must be mine. Chapter 881. As soon as they walked out of the venue, which was managed by the guild and rented to the clan, Noah exhaled deeply, his brows furrowed even tighter. What's the matter with that love-struck goddess? Until now, the source of the scorching gaze that had been unbridled in Noah's direction was very obvious. It was Freya. But why would Freya treat him like that? Noah couldn't think of a reason at all. Just because I have extraordinary strength, she took a fancy to me and wanted to poach me into Freya's clan? Noah was perplexed as he recalled Freya's passionate gaze and her unconcealable love for him. That doesn't seem to be the case. What's going on? As soon as he finished speaking, a voice answered Noah's question. You're right. That love-struck goddess has taken a fancy to you. With such a voice, Loki, who was dressed in men's clothing, walked out of the venue. Behind Loki, Hestia and Aeth were there as well. As soon as Hestia came out, she pounced on Noah and hugged him, her face full of excitement. Noah, you're really amazing. Even that Valiant is no match for you. No one in Eulalia can beat you in a one-on-one fight. Being hugged by Hestia, Noah immediately felt a very soft touch spreading in front of him, which made him a little shaken. He reached out his hand and hit Hestia's head hard. Bang! With a muffled sound, Hestia hugged her head and squatted down with tears in the corner of her eyes. Didn't I tell you not to hug me so easily? Noah withdrew his hand from Hestia's head and sighed. Ignoring Hestia, who was looking at him with resentment, he turned his head and looked at Loki. You said that love-struck goddess has taken a fancy to me? What's going on? Do you want to know the truth? The eyeballs in Loki's narrowed eyes turned slightly, and he smiled treacherously as he said this. If you want to know, then say goodbye to this poor shorty and join my clan. How about that? Hearing this, Hestia, who was crouching down with her hands on her head, suddenly jumped up. She pointed at Loki and shouted, Don't try to steal my girl. You're an airport. Loki was successfully detonated. He bared his fangs and rushed towards Hestia. Don't call me airport runway. Wah 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 wah. The two goddesses, one big and one small, immediately got into a scuffle. They pinched each other's cheeks and cursed at each other. Such a good child should stay in the most powerful clan tribe. You poor shorty. You are simply wasting God's gift. As if a good child should have a gentle and kind Lord God to guide him. How can a salty Lord God like you, who only knows how to take advantage of the girls in the clan, be suitable? Do you think a shorty who only knows how to be a leech is suitable? You're just being raised by that child. Which Lord God isn't being raised by a child? Do you dare to say that you're not? And you only know how to take advantage of girls. Or only take advantage of girls. I won't let you give Noah to this airport runway. Humph. How can a shorty who doesn't understand how delicious cute girls are understand my taste? I don't want to understand the taste of the salty Lord God. What's more, you're an airport runway. Didn't I say you're not allowed to call me an airport runway? I told you. You airport runway. Airport runway. Airport runway. Detestable god of poverty shorty. I'll fight with you. Wawa. Don't pull my clothes. You salty Lord God. As they quarreled, Loki began to pull at Hestia's gown, causing the gown, which was on the verge of collapsing because of the binding of Hestia's foul upper body, to ripple violently. That scene was really too hurtful to the eyes, and even AIC's face was a little red. Noah could only hold his forehead and sigh, and looked at AIC for help. Can't you think of a way? AIC blinked her eyes and looked at Loki and Hesti, who were fighting on the ground. She lowered her head helplessly and said in frustration, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Noah's sigh became heavier. He narrowed his eyes and raised his hand. Suddenly, golden ripples reverberated around Hestia and Loki. The next moment, silver chains with wedges of different shapes protruded from the golden ripples and shot toward Hestia and Loki like arrows, causing a series of clanging sounds as the chains wrapped around the two goddesses. As the chains pulled, Hestia and Loki, who were wrestling together, cried out in alarm at the same time. They were pulled into the air and tied up by the chains. What is this? Chains? What are those golden ripples? It seemed that Hestia and Loki did not notice Noah's actions. It could be seen that when the two were wrestling, they only had eyes for each other. It was quite a bitter hatred. Loki. Noah went straight to the point. What's the matter with that love-struck goddess? Let go of me first. Loki struggled. How dare you treat a god like this? You're blaspheming a god. Hearing this, Noah's forehead was imprinted with the word well, and he put on a fake smile. Do you want me to hang you up on the Tower of Babel, and let all the adventurers who want to go to the dungeon see you as a god tomorrow? Rocky's struggling body suddenly stopped, and the expression on his face stiffened. He could only look at AIC with a pitiful expression. AIC Tan, hurry up and save me. AIC turned her head away expressionlessly, as if she was saying that she didn't see anything. This made Loki give up. I know. You just want to know why that love-struck fool fell in love with you, right? Loki snorted coldly and turned his head away. That love-struck fool has eyes that can directly see the souls of children in the mortal world, and she will be infatuated with those children whose souls are particularly brilliant. That's the so-called love. I guess that love-struck fool saw your soul, and the brilliance of your soul is more dazzling than ordinary people's. That's why she fell in love with you." As he said this, Loki looked at Noah strangely. In the past, that love-struck fool used her ability to charm the children she fancied, but you can actually ignore the charm of a beauty. "Little guy, who are you?" Noah did not answer Loki's question. Instead, he turned his head and looked at Hestia. "That beauty is really fickle. She ate almost all the male gods. She didn't even let go of the children in the family tribe, right?" Hestia yelled at Noah in an imposing manner. "No matter what, Noah, you can't be deceived by that fickle goddess. Only I, who is known as one of the three goddesses and has always maintained my purity, is the most suitable for you." The corner of Noah's mouth twitched. What does she mean by maintaining her purity is the most suitable? It's not a blind date. In short, you can resist the charm of a beauty, and the fierce one can't do anything to you. That love-struck fool probably won't dare to do it openly, but she must have a lot of tricks up her sleeves. You'd better be careful. Loki curled his lips. "Although it makes me very unhappy to let this little shorty have you, it will only make me even more unhappy if that love-struck fool has you. Why don't you just join my family tribe? You're an airport. Don't even think about it. You're calling me an airport again." "Ah." The two goddesses immediately bared their fangs and brandished their claws at each other under the shackles of the chains. They were like two clowns, and people who saw them couldn't help but want to laugh. Ignoring the two goddesses who bared their fangs and brandished their claws at each other under the shackles of the chains, Noah fell into deep thought. The brilliance of the soul? At this time Noah felt his sleeve being pulled. Noah turned his head and looked at his side. There Aic pulled Noah's sleeve, looked straight at Noah, tilted her head and said softly, "Are you okay?" Hearing this, Noah was startled and immediately smiled. "No problem, I can handle it." Only then did Aic's pretty face relax a little. She then mustered up her courage and said, "That agreement, does it still count?" "Agreement?" Noah was startled. Chapter 882. The next day, when Noah woke up from his sleep, he immediately found something different from before. The specific manifestation was that under Noah's quilt, there was a very warm and very soft thing lying in his arms, making Noah feel as if he was hugging it more comfortable than any pillow in the world. Aware of this feeling, Noah was immediately awakened, and immediately seemed to think of something. A wry smile appeared on his face, and he lifted the quilt on his body. Under the quilt, there was a petite girl with long black hair that fell like a waterfall in front of Noah, hugging him tightly like a child worried that her toy would be snatched away, unconsciously rubbing against Noah's chest, sleeping soundly. That, of course, was Hestia. Yesterday, after coming out of the banquet held by Freya's family, Hestia had not left Noah for a moment. It should be said that there was not a moment when she was not sticking to Noah, right? That was something that couldn't be helped. After all, whether it was Freya or Loki, they were very blatant with the idea of poaching Noah away from Hestia and let Noah join their family. Because of this, Hestia didn't say it on the surface and even could talk to Loki, but in fact she was a little uneasy. After all, whether it was Freya's family or Loki's family, they were the most powerful family in Eulalia, and they were even called the two kings of Eulalia. How could Hestia not feel uneasy when the main god of such a spawn personally came out with the idea of poaching Noah into his spawn? Compared to Freya's family and Loki's family, who were known as the two kings of Eulalia, if Hestia's family lost Noah, it could be said that there was nothing left. In addition, Noah had shown strength comparable to LV7 in front of almost all the gods in Eulalia yesterday, so he would definitely attract the attention of the main gods of the other clans. Therefore, the uneasiness in Hestia's heart was even stronger. Even though Noah had always said that he wasn't interested in those so-called powerful spawns, Hestia still didn't feel at ease. As a result, Hestia stuck to Noah all day long, and even at night, she did not intend to let go of Noah. When Noah was about to go to sleep, she got into his quilt, as if once she let go of Noah, he would disappear from her sight, which made Noah not know whether to laugh or cry. Noah had no choice but to comply with Hestia's wishes and let her do as she pleased. Looking at Hestia's extremely cute sleeping face, Noah could not help but smile, reached out his hand and stroked Hestia's hair. You don't look like a goddess at all. You're just an ordinary girl. With such a sentence, Noah gently broke away from Hestia's embrace. It had to be said that Hestia was really a very dangerous goddess, mainly in the aspect of figure. Undoubtedly, she was so petite, but almost no one could ignore certain parts of her body. That would be too much of a foul. Therefore, even Noah couldn't control his heart from wavering in the face of such a contrast. Not to mention that Hestia had always been unguarded against Noah, and in a way she had been providing all kinds of benefits to Noah. If Noah continued to be hugged by Hestia like this, he would really lose control of himself. He could only hurriedly break free from Hestia's embrace. He tried his best not to disturb Hestia's sleep, got out of bed, put on his clothes and quietly walked out of the room. When Noah came out of the room, Baal had already gotten up and was wearing light armor in the hall. After seeing Noah come out, he immediately greeted him respectfully. Leader, good morning. Good morning, Baal. Noah put on his outer clothes and chatted casually with Baal. Are you going to the dungeon today? Yes. Baal nodded heavily. Leader, please guide me today. Ever since the Minotaur incident, Baal had become much more determined than before. In the past, Baal only wanted to become an adventurer, because he was looking for opportunities in the dungeon. Now Baal sincerely wanted to become stronger. Thus, Baal had been working hard these days, and his improvement was much greater than before. Just yesterday, Noah had allowed Baal to go to the area below the 7th floor alone. However, Noah had repeatedly told him that level 10 was the limit. Now Baal was not allowed to go below level 10. By the way, Baal, Noah suddenly said, I won't be going to the dungeon with you today. Baal didn't expect Noah to say that, and he was taken aback. You won't be going to the dungeon with me? That's right. Your combat skills have basically taken shape. Next, I don't need to personally teach you. You just need to constantly improve your combat skills in actual combat. That will be enough. Noah shrugged. Moreover, I can't always be your nanny. It's time for you to explore the dungeon yourself. Myself. Baal was uneasy. Will it be fine if I go alone? Yes, as long as you don't go below level 10, there shouldn't be a problem. Noah nodded. Of course, there's always an accident. If there's an accident, don't hesitate. Run away first. Don't force yourself. Understand? Yes, sir. Baal obeyed the order. Then you'll go to the dungeon alone today. Noah walked towards the door. I have something to do. Remember to come back before nightfall. Yes, team leader. Baal obeyed. Under Baal's watchful gaze, Noah opened the door and went outside. He entered the bustling street. However, just as Noah was about to walk towards one of the streets, there was a commotion in the crowd. Noah subconsciously turned his head and looked in the direction of the commotion. Then he was startled. Rumble. At the end of the street, a group of people were running like wild beasts. Behind them was a cloud of smoke. They were swarming towards Noah. They were all gods. Moreover, they were all goddesses. Found you. Amidst the exhilarating shouts, Noah, who was completely petrified on the spot, was suddenly surrounded by a group of gods. Some of the goddesses even hugged him tightly. We've finally found you. Little guy. Noah, who was surrounded, was directly immersed in the fragrance and softness of a group of goddesses. He was completely stunned and even cried out in astonishment. What's going on? This question was answered in the next second, because the goddesses who surrounded Noah started to make a ruckus. Hey, do you want to join my family tribe? I'll love you dearly. What that Lolita goddess has, so do we. I don't understand why you want to join Hestia's family tribe. Come to me. Yes. Don't tell me you've taken a fancy to Hestia's magnificent upper body. If that's the case, then you're even more qualified to be part of my clan. Look, I'm not inferior to Hestia at all. Saying this, the goddesses suddenly raised their heads and puffed out their chests. They desperately squeezed Noah's body, giving Noah a heavenly treatment that would make ordinary men emit black smoke and resentment. More importantly, these goddesses were all as ferocious as wolves and tigers, extremely valiant. By the way, we have all inquired. Undoubtedly, you don't even have a title and your level is at most LV 2, right? Why can you resist the valiant warrior? Because of the physique? Because of the skill? Or magic? Rare skill. Is it a rare skill? It must be a rare skill. I really want to see your ability value. No, I can't help but want to take off this child's clothes. Good idea. A man who can't even be taken down by the valiant warrior? It really makes my blood boil. Look carefully. Aren't you the child who saw us naked in the bathhouse last time? Yes, yes. Then it's okay to let us see your body, right? Don't talk about it, just take it off. Noah's face turned green for the first time in his life. Chapter 883. Ha! 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 Under a huge wall at the edge of Eulalie, Noah, who was running out of an alley, stopped running with all his might. Using his hand to support himself against the wall, he bent down slightly and gasped for breath. He was out of breath for a long time. Even in this state, Noah quickly turned his head and looked behind him. After confirming that there was no one behind him, or rather, there was no god chasing after him, he breathed a sigh of relief. Finally got rid of them? It had been almost half an hour since he was found by a group of goddesses. In this half an hour, Noah had been running for his life. That's right. He was running for his life. Although he would not lose his life if he could not escape, he would definitely lose something more important than his life. Therefore, it was not an exaggeration to say that he was running for his life. Until now, Noah had finally escaped to the edge of Orly, and got rid of the large group of goddesses. Even so, Noah still had a look of lingering fear on his face. Didn't they say that the power of gods could not be used in the lower realm? Didn't they say that their physical fitness was no different from that of ordinary people? Then my physical fitness should be much better than those so-called gods, right? Why was I still chased for half an hour before I managed to escape? For the first time, Noah understood how terrifying the so-called gods were. Undoubtedly, Noah had crossed swords with the so-called gods many times in other worlds, and even killed the so-called gods with his own hands. Logically speaking, he should be considered experienced in dealing with those gods. However, in less than 2 months after coming to this world, Noah had been chased by a group of goddesses twice, and he was almost caught in a situation where the other party could only use the power of an ordinary person. It took him a lot of effort to escape from death. Were the gods of this world so terrifying? Of course, if Noah wanted to fight seriously, he would definitely not end up like this. However, it was because he could not fight that he ended up like this. Compared to those ferocious goddesses, the charm of the beautiful gods is much easier to deal with. Noah smiled bitterly and confirmed that there was no one behind him. Then he sighed deeply, stood up straight, raised his head and looked forward. What entered Noah's eyes was naturally the huge black wall. That was the city wall that surrounded the entire city called Orly. As mentioned before, Orly was a circle as a whole, and this circle is made up of the city wall that encircles the entire Eulalia. Although this city wall was not as tall as the Tower of Babel, it was comparable to a normal city wall. Therefore, looking up from the bottom of the wall, one could still feel an indescribable sense of oppression. It was the instinctive oppression brought by the huge thing. Undoubtedly, I have seen many things that are much more spectacular than this wall, but I can still feel this oppression. Humans are really incredible existences. Leaving behind such a sentimental sentence, Noah glanced around and walked in a certain direction. Gotcha! Opening a heavy door, Noah walked down a long flight of stairs and came to the outside where the sun was shining. This was the top of the city wall, which was also Noah's destination. Looking out from here, one could see the land, forests, and mountains that extended all the way to the horizon. Looking inside, one could see the bustling Eulalie under the sunlight. However, Noah did not look outside the city wall, nor did he look inside the city wall. Instead, he looked straight ahead. There, a figure with her back facing Noah entered Noah's vision like a beautiful picture. Her long hair that reached her waist swayed with the breeze. The sunlight pouring down from the sky shone on it, making the brilliant golden color even more dazzling. In the whole of Orly, and even in the whole world, the famous swordswoman stood on the city wall with her back facing Noah, forming a very beautiful picture. However, around such a beautiful picture there were several other figures. Ah! The wheat-skinned Amazon girl who was chatting with the person next to her seemed to be the first to notice Noah's arrival. Her eyes lit up, and then she waved her hand in the direction of Noah with great liveliness. "Little brother. Over here." That was the first-level adventurer of the Loki clan, Tiona. Next to her, another wheat-skinned Amazon girl also looked in the direction of Noah and smiled sweetly. Oh, she really came. Who else could it be except for Tiona, who was almost inseparable from Tiona? In addition to the Amazon sisters, there were two other people next to A's. One of them was the Elven royal family's strongest Grand Magus, Riveria. She wore a long robe and had long green hair that reached her waist. She gave off a noble aura. The other was a pure-looking and very cute girl, Leafia, who was also an elf girl and was being trained as Riveria's successor. Looking at the group of 5 girls forming a beautiful scenery and all of them casting their gazes on him at the first moment, Noah was completely astonished. "Why are you all here?" Yesterday, after coming out of the banquet held by the Freya clan, Ace mentioned the previous agreement with Noah. That was to try to become stronger in ways other than grace. At that time, because of Loki's uneasiness, or rather, his unwillingness to let his most precious child be taught by other people in the clan, this matter was somewhat unsettled. However, last night, Ace brought up this matter again and asked Noah to help her. For this reason has T and Loki made a lot of noise. One of them objected to Noah being too close to the clan of their sworn enemy, saying that it would be suspicious of poaching. The other was the same as before, objecting to letting their most precious child interact too frequently with other clan members, or rather, objecting to A's interacting with any member of the opposite sex. Unfortunately, this time A's was quite persistent, and Loki couldn't do anything about it. Thus this matter was really finalized. That was why Noah went out early in the morning and came to the city wall. But it was understandable that A's was here. But what was going on with Riveria, Leafia, Tiona, and Tyogni? Loki asked us to come. Tiona giggled and answered Noah's question. He said that A's can't be alone with the opposite sex, or else she might do something terrible, so he asked us to supervise. Well, Tyogni said in amusement. Although to us, if we can see A's, who has no interest other than fighting, fall in love with a man, that would be a good thing. Please don't joke around, okay? Leafia immediately glared fiercely at Noah. As if she was trying to convince herself and the others, she shouted loudly. How could Miss Ace fall in love with a man? Hearing this, Noah's mouth twitched. If she didn't like men, was she going to be a lesbian? This elven girl really did have some dangerous feelings for A's, didn't she? Instead, it was Tiona who was curious about Leafia's behavior. Leafia, didn't you always say that little brother is a good person? That's different from this. Leafia stuttered, her pretty face blushing. Even if he's a good person, it's inevitable that he'll do something wrong sometimes. We have to take precautions. That's right, that's it. Oh, Leafia actually has such a dishonest time? Tyogni teased. Could this be the so-called Sundra? Of course not. Leafia immediately retorted. But that only caused Tiona and Tyogni to continue teasing her. A's, who couldn't get a word in, didn't know what to do. Alright, we're not at home now. There are outsiders here, so don't go overboard. Riveria called out to stop the girls from messing around. She then turned around and nodded at Noah. Sorry, we were rude. That's how it is. Can you allow us to watch from the side? We won't disturb Sir and A's. Noah curled his lips and nodded nonchalantly. Chapter 884. Perhaps the 3 girls Leafia, Tiona, and Tiona appeared here because Loki was worried about letting the most precious swordswoman get along with the opposite sex, so he asked these girls to supervise? However, Riveria's appearance here was definitely not as simple as supervision. Unlike the other girls, Riveria was the real leader of the Loki clan. In the entire Loki clan, besides Loki, who was the main god, the one with the most right to speak was Finn, who was the leader. Then there was Riveria, who was the deputy leader. Findanner, who was known as the Brave. Riveria Lis Ali, who was known as the 9 Devils. Gareth Landlock, who was known as the Great Hero. Everyone knew that these 3 people were the 3 leaders of the Loki clan, one of the most powerful clans in Eulalia. One of these leaders was here now, just to supervise a member of the clan, and not let her have a relationship with other members of the clan? To be honest, even if this person was the only important LV6 member of the Loki clan other than the 3 leaders, It was a bit of a fuss to let the deputy leader personally come out to supervise. Therefore, there might be something to supervise, but there must be another reason for Riveria to be present. That reason was probably to explore the truth of the so-called way to become stronger other than grace. Right? After all, Noah had asked AIC in advance to never reveal what he taught except for herself. AIC readily agreed to it. With AIC's character, since she agreed, then even the orders of the main god couldn't pry open her mouth, right? Regarding this, Noah still believed in his own eyes and thought that he wouldn't misjudge people. Loki should also understand this. But even if he couldn't get the so-called way to become stronger, his curiosity as a god and the sense of responsibility to make the clan strong still made Loki send Riveria over to watch from the sidelines in an attempt to see something, right? Therefore, the reason why Riveria came here was because she was worried about AIC. She also wanted to use this as an excuse to openly watch from the sidelines. Unfortunately, Noah had more or less expected this situation and made preparations. Therefore, Noah immediately said this to Aze, who was looking at him closely in front of Riveria, Leafia, Tiona, and Tioni. I'll say this first. My sword skills and battle techniques should be on par with yours. Although I do have some physical abilities other than grace, those are obtained through years of training. So, don't expect me to teach you any secret techniques that will allow you to quickly become stronger. This sentence made AIC slightly startled, and the rest of the girls also looked at each other in dismay. AIC looked at Noah in confusion and asked directly, "Then what do you want to teach me?" Hearing this, Noah smiled and asked a question instead of answering. "Let me ask you, in this world, what is it that allows one to gain a certain level of power the moment they learn it? And if they use it well, they can even kill enemies above their level?" This. AIC hesitated and replied uncertainly. "Magic." "That's right." Noah nodded. "It's magic." With regards to Noah's words, everyone present understood. In this world, magic was equivalent to the treasures of the heroic spirits. It was a trump card and a sure kill skill. Previously, there was also an example. A person with a sword would never be able to fight against an opponent who could create a sea of fire with a wave of his hand. Therefore, the importance and power of magic was imaginable. If one could have magic, even a novice adventurer who could only explore the 1st to 4th level of the underground city would be able to go down to the 10th level and explore alone. The difference between having magic and not having magic was this huge. Looking at AIC, Noah said, "You should have seen the magic that I used the first time I went to the 10th level of the underground city and attracted a large group of beastmen to train my basic abilities, right?" After hearing Noah's words, everyone, including the spectating girls, except for the puzzled Leafia, recalled the magic that was used to clear the area when they saw Noah training his basic abilities on the 10th level of the underground city. To be precise, it should be magic. Because of Noah's overly large amount of magic, there was a change in the magic from the magic bullet to the magic cannon magic. Of course, in this place it was not wrong to call it magic, and it was easier to understand. Seeing that AIC recalled the incident that day, Noah suddenly smiled. "Is that magic powerful?" AIC nodded involuntarily. Then, Noah said something that moved everyone present. "Then, if I let you learn another type of magic, it should be able to make you obviously stronger, right? Learn magic." The girls were stunned. Learn magic? Noah said that the other way to become stronger other than grace was to let AIC learn another type of magic? Is this a joke? "Your Excellency, Noah." Riveria frowned and directly said, "Forgive me for being blunt, but if you mean that the other way to become stronger other than grace is to learn magic, then for AIC, it is impossible." "That's right." Leafia also spoke up. "Humans are unable to learn innate type of magic." These words couldn't be more appropriate for the elves, Riveria and Leafia, to say them. In this world, magic was divided into innate type and acquired type. Innate type of magic referred to magic that involved the magic of the bloodline, and magic that could only be learned through one's own potential and cultivation. Most of these types of magic had a fixed inclination, which meant that the magic that people of the same race could learn was mostly the same, and it was difficult to exceed the norm. Acquired type of magic, on the other hand, was the possibility of magic that was stimulated through the grace of God. Under the inspiration of the grace of God, one could learn at least one, and at most 3 types of magic. The latter was the source of most of the people in this world who possessed magic. The former would only appear in those magical races that were blessed by nature. Unfortunately, humans were not a magical race that was blessed by nature. Once the grace was lost, it would be impossible for them to learn magic on their own like the elves. Unfortunately, AIC was not a magical race that was blessed by nature like the elves. Therefore, everyone felt that Noah's words were strange. Noah was naturally clear about this. Words are not proof. Noah shrugged. So let me show you the evidence. Saying this, Noah turned his back, took off his coat and took off his shirt, exposing his muscular back in front of the girls. Wah! Suddenly seeing the body of the opposite sex, Leafia let out a strange cry, and her face turned red. AIC, Riveria, Tiona, and Tyogny subconsciously focused their gaze on the very obvious mysterious pattern on Noah's back. That was Noah's ability value. Noah Doriel v. 2 Strength, S. 967, Durability, S. 976, Agility, S. 971, Agility, S. 988, Magic, S. 954 Mystery. A magic skill protection from the world permanent skill. Equal to luck. Events that were directly related to luck would eventually lead to the most favorable outcome. Among the people present, Tiona and Tyogny could not understand the sacred text. However, AIC, Riveria, and Leafia could understand the sacred text. Therefore, when the three girls deciphered Noah's ability value and imprinted it into their minds, the three girls were completely stunned on the spot. That's impossible. Leafia subconsciously covered her mouth with her little hand and cried out in surprise. How could this be? Riveria seemed to have been caught off guard and was stunned on the spot. AIC looked closely at the ability value on Noah's back, and after confirming the contents, her eyes could not help but flicker. Tiona and Tyogny, who could not understand the sacred text, looked at AIC, Riveria, and Leafia's reactions and became curious. Chapter 885. What's wrong? What's wrong? Seeing A's, Riveria, and Rafia staring at Noah's ability value with incredulity, Tiona and Tyogny hurriedly asked, "What's wrong with that ability value?" A's, Riveria, and Rafia ignored Tiona and Tyogny. Instead, they kept checking Noah's ability value over and over again until they were sure that they weren't mistaken. They fell into an indescribable silence. Hey, what's going on? Tiona jumped up and down as if her heart was being scratched by a kitten. Say something. Yeah. Even Tyogny was a little anxious. What's wrong with that ability value? Riveria and Rafia looked at each other and smiled bitterly. Rafia was still in disbelief. Why is the magic column empty? Tiona and Tyogny couldn't understand the meaning of this sentence at first. When they finally reacted, their eyes widened. You're saying that his magic column is empty? Tyogny asked in surprise. Impossible. Undoubtedly, he used magic that day in the dungeon. Yeah. Tiona nodded repeatedly. I saw it too. A's, Riveria, and even Finn saw it. There's no mistake. If you put it that way, I don't know what's going on either. Leafia looked distressed. I wasn't there that day. In fact, other than the fact that the magic column was empty, A's, Riveria, and Rafia were also surprised. First, Noah's basic ability value. His ability value was S stage? This was the first time A's and the others heard that someone's ability value could reach this level. Second, Noah's level. Undoubtedly, Noah was an ordinary person who didn't receive any favor more than a month ago. But now he had risen to LV, too. Even A's, who had seen Noah receiving Hestia's favor, and was still in its initial state, was stunned by this fact, let alone Revelia and Leafia who had only heard about it. The third was Noah's ability to develop. Mysterious Noah actually possessed a rare development ability that only 5 people in the entire Eulalia possessed. This surprised A's, Riveria, and Leafia. Then there was the skill world's protection. A's, who had already seen Noah's ability once, was fine with it, but Riveria and Leafia, who were seeing it for the first time, were more or less astonished. Because he had never heard of this skill before. That was undoubtedly a rare skill, and it was even more likely to be a unique skill. The information revealed by the ability value shocked A's, Riveria, and Leafia. Riveria was the first to calm down. After hesitating for a moment, she solemnly spoke to Noah. Is it okay to let us outsiders see your ability value? There's nothing to worry about. Noah shrugged nonchalantly as he put on his clothes, looking as though he was doing whatever he wanted. Although the ability value is a secret of the individual and the clan, it is also because they are worried that if it is revealed, the clan that may become the enemy will be on guard and even plan to deal with them. But I'm different from you. I didn't completely rely on favor to gain my power. Saying this, Noah looked at Riveria with a smile that wasn't a smile. Leak out important information and let the enemy set up all kinds of traps. However, the real trump card is hidden under the leaked information. Suddenly take it out when the enemy thinks that you are done for. Don't you think that this is more effective than simply hiding it? Riveria's expression changed slightly. She lowered her head and remained silent. Let's get back to the topic. Noah changed the topic and looked at Ace, who had been staring at him. As you can see, my magic column is empty. My magic is completely self-taught. And it's not a magic that can only be learned by magical races like elves. It's a magic that can be learned by anyone as long as they put in the effort. So, can you still say that I can't let you learn magic and become stronger? A magic that can be learned by anyone, Leafia said subconsciously. How can that? However, Leafia couldn't continue halfway through her words. Ace, Riveria, Tiona, and Tiona all understood why Leafia couldn't continue. It won't consume the broken magic sword. An independent space that can store items. It can match the strongest existence of LV. 7 with a LV. 2 level. Noah has taken out a lot of these incredible things. Since that was the case, what was so strange about him coming up with a spell that anyone could learn? In fact, Noah did intend to let Ace learn the magic that he once had. Crushing magic. This was the only thing that Noah could teach Ace. After all, magic needed to be connected to the magic base plate, in the world of the moon. Even if he taught it to Ace, Ace couldn't use it. The 3 major magic of Fairy Tale were the treasures of the guild. Even Makarov and Laxus only had one of them. As the candidate for the next president of Fairy Tale, Noah naturally couldn't give away the treasure of the guild. Then the only thing that could be taught to Ace was crushing magic. Wong! A golden ripple suddenly reverberated in the air, spitting out a fist-sized crystal ball like clear pearl. It fell and landed on Noah's outstretched hand. This is a tool that can be used to record information. I've recorded the magic that I want you to learn in it. Noah held Ace's hand and placed the pearl in her hand. Crush this and you'll be able to obtain the information within. This was the method that Noah had prepared beforehand. This way, even if Riveria was watching from the side, she wouldn't be able to obtain the method to use crushing magic. AIC held the orb tightly, and her usually expressionless face began to show traces of solemnity. Bang! With a loud crack, the orb in AIC's hand was crushed into pieces. Suddenly, a gorgeous golden light suddenly appeared and shot into A's forehead like an arrow. A's Miss A's. Riveria, Leafia, Tiona and the other girls cried out in alarm. However, A's didn't have time to respond to her companions' calls. A huge amount of information poured into A's mind, causing A's pupils to become slightly lax. After a while they refocused. How is it? Noah looked straight at A's. Are you confident that you'll be able to learn it? A's nodded her head heavily, her eyes revealing a trace of determination. Is that so? Noah took a step back. Then, according to the memories in your mind, use crushing magic once. A's nodded her head again and closed her eyes. Actually, Noah wasn't confident that A's would be able to learn crushing magic. After all, the people of this world didn't have magic in their bodies. Magic also required the consumption of mental strength to use. In the process of using magic, Noah didn't know if the magic converted from mental strength could be used to use magic from other worlds. However, since AIC had used the method of exhausting her mental strength to release the true name of the sword in the stone, it proved that the conversion of mental strength into magical power should have the same effect as the magical power of other worlds. It was entirely possible to use crushing magic by consuming mental strength. However, in the next second something unexpected happened. A's face suddenly changed. Clang! Following that, from AIC's body, a burst of brilliant white light suddenly burst forth, like a tide surging in all directions. Wong! With AIC as the center, The city wall that was enveloped by the white light shuddered slightly. Then white lines suddenly appeared and divided the city wall into squares. Seeing this scene, Riveria, Leafia, Tiona, and Tyogni were shocked. Even Noah's face changed slightly. Not good. Chapter 886. At the corner of the city wall surrounding Olalai, a dazzling white light that was even more dazzling than the sun's rays, like a tidal wave, instantly expanded to the surroundings and continued to rise sharply. Everywhere that was covered by the brilliant white light, a corner of the city wall was directly divided by a white line. It trembled frequently, as if it could explode at any time. It looked quite dangerous. In the center of the white light, Aze let out a miserable cry. It wasn't because of pain, but because she was trying to control the magic that had gone out of control. Miss Aze. Leafia, Tiona, and Tiny were anxious. Just as they were about to rush into the dazzling white light, Riveria shouted, "Don't touch that light. It's very dangerous." As expected of the existence known as the most powerful archmage in Eulalia. Even though crushing magic wasn't a type of magic from this world, Riveria, with her astounding attainments in magic, was still able to more or less see through the properties of crushing magic and understand the danger of coming into contact with the white light. Under such circumstances, Leafia, Tiona, and Tiny reflexively stopped and didn't dare to move forward. They could only anxiously wait at the edge of the white light. Whoosh! But at this moment, a black shadow ignored Riveria's warning and fiercely shot into the dazzling white light. The moment the dazzling white light came into contact with the black shadow, it was as if it was dispelled by fog and directly disappeared. Immediately, in the eyes of Riveria, Leafia, Tiona, and Tiny, the dazzling white light was like a sea that was suddenly parted. Wherever the black shadow passed, the white light turned into mist and dissipated, forming a path. Immediately after, Noah, who had turned into a black shadow, suddenly flashed in front of Aze, who was trying her best to control shatter magic, and fiercely hugged Aze. The dazzling white light bursting out from Aze's body suddenly paused. Poof! Like a scattered mist, the dazzling white light with Aze as the center suddenly disappeared without a trace. At this moment, Aze's knees went soft and she sat on the ground. She panted and her eyes were filled with unconcealable exhaustion. Obviously, although the shatter magic just now went out of control, it still consumed most of Aze's mental strength. She didn't directly exhaust it and fell into a deep sleep. It was all thanks to Noah's curse resistance that could nullify mystical powers that didn't reach the realm of gods. In other words, Noah's hug directly nullified the shatter magic from Aze's body. Miss Aze. Only then did Riveria, Leafia, Tiona, and the other girls rush over to AIC's side. Miss AIC. Leafia squatted down and supported AIC, her face full of worry. Aze Rifaya. Aze was still panting. She looked at Rifaya tiredly and shook her head. "I'm fine," Riveria sized up Aze. After confirming that Aze was indeed fine, she turned her head and looked at Noah. "That magic just now went out of control, right?" "That's right." Noah laughed bitterly. "This magic is very difficult to control. If it's not careful, it will go out of control. Once it goes out of control, everything in the surroundings will not be spared." "Everything in the surroundings will not be spared." Riveria frowned. "What kind of magic is that?" "It's a magic called shatter." Noah didn't hide it and said directly. As the name suggests, it can shatter everything, including the human body and magic. Such a dangerous magic. Tiona was bewildered. "Then just now?" "Just now?" Noah rubbed his eyebrows. "Just now, if I didn't stop it, the city wall here would probably be missing a piece." Hearing this, the group of girls finally understood what Riveria meant when she said that it was dangerous. "You actually let us learn such a dangerous magic?" Riveria's frown deepened, and her tone even carried a hint of questioning. "If Ace can't control this magic, then won't everyone around her be in danger?" "Don't worry." Noah glanced at Riveria. "I've already considered this point." After saying this, Noah stretched out a hand and directly reached into the space. To be more precise, it should be said that he reached into a golden ripple that reverberated in the space beside him. After a while, Noah pulled out a very beautiful bracelet that seemed to be made of ivory from his treasury. Squatting down, this time Noah extended a hand to Aze. "Give me your hand." Ace raised her head and looked at Noah's outstretched hand. After hesitating for a moment, she obediently put her hand in Noah's palm. Under everyone's gaze, Noah put the bracelet on Ace's wrist, and while putting it on, he explained, "This is a bracelet that can suppress the activation of magic. As long as you wear it, you won't be able to activate magic, including your acquired magic from grace. So, you can use it according to the situation. It's the same when you practice crush magic. Once you lose control of your magic, wear it immediately, and the magic will be cancelled." A bracelet that can suppress magic. Leafia, Tiona, and Tiona looked at the bracelet on Ace's wrist curiously. "You really are an incredible person." Riveria sighed. "Not only do you have incredible abilities, but you also have so many incredible things. I really want to know where all these things came from." Yeah. Tiona's eyes began to sparkle as she looked at Noah. "Little brother, what other incredible things do you have? Take them out for us to see. Don't keep saying stupid things, idiot." Tiona reprimanded Tiona. "I don't have the obligation to take out my own things to satisfy your curiosity." Despite saying that, Tiona herself was also very curious. Even Leafia kept stealing glances at Noah, a look of curiosity in her eyes. "In short, take care of yourself." Noah ignored the others and only told Ace, "Your mental power is very strong. Otherwise, you wouldn't have been able to release the true name of the sword in the stone. However, the stronger your mental power, the more powerful the magic crush you can use. If you don't think of a way to control it, it is possible that your Loki clan's headquarters will be blown to pieces." Hearing that, everyone, including Riveria, shuddered. Ace was the only one who nodded heavily. She looked at Noah with eyes full of gratitude. "Thank you for giving me such great power." "Don't thank me." Noah spread out his hands. "I just don't want this magic to be inherited by no one." Since Magic Crush was integrated into Noah's authority, Noah could only use Magic Crush when he was using the Horde incarnation. He could no longer use Magic Crush by learning Magic Crush from scratch. For example, the magic called Magic Crush was like a full cup of water. When it was integrated into Noah's authority, it only added sugar and turned into sugar water. It did not disappear. If Noah learned Magic Crush from scratch, the water called Magic Crush would overflow even if it was poured into the cup. Not only would it run away, it would also turn into sugar water like the water in the cup. Therefore, Noah could no longer use Magic Crush without using authority. Then, if teaching this magic to Ace could help her, Kildas would probably be happy, right? "I've given you the power you want. I've also helped you solve the problem of losing control of your magic. Now it's up to you how to control and familiarize yourself with this magic." Noah folded his arms. "I have done what I can do. I can't always watch over you. You have to be careful. Don't make any accidents." After saying that, Noah wanted to leave, but Ace quickly grabbed the corner of his clothes. "That," Ace said hesitantly, "can I repay you?" Chapter 887. Eulalie, at a corner of West Main Street. Noah stood beside the busy street, raised his head, and looked at the building in front of him. It was a 2-story building. The door of the building was open to the outside at all times. The inside was filled with wooden tables and chairs. Not only were the adventurers eating and drinking, but they were also laughing and joking around. Sometimes they would even tease the young girls in staff uniforms that walked past them, making the whole shop seem very lively. The plaque hanging on the shop was marked with words in the common language. "The Mistress of Plenty." Looking at the familiar shop, Noah was a little dumbfounded and turned his gaze to AIC and the others beside him. "Don't tell me your so-called repayment is to treat me to a meal here?" Facing Noah's question, AIC nodded gently. Her usually expressionless face seemed to faintly show a little embarrassment. Evidently, AIC didn't know how to repay Noah. In the end, she came to the conclusion that she would treat Noah to a meal. Moreover, it was at the Mistress of Plenty that Noah had been to once before. "This is a hotel that we come to more often." Tiona smiled mischievously. "Well, it's said that we come here more often, but actually Loki is a little familiar with the owner here. If there is any celebration banquet in the clan tribe, Loki will almost always bring us here. Looking at you, you seem to have been here before, right?" Tiona smiled slightly. "The cuisine here is not bad. If we want to have a good meal, then the first place we think of is here. I've only been here once, and then I haven't patronized it again. Noah scratched his cheek. Well, when I first came to Eulalie, a clerk here helped me a lot. It's not bad to patronize this shop. It's decided then. Tiona rushed into the shop as if she couldn't wait any longer. Let's go. Idiot, don't rush to the front. Tiona shouted and chased after her. Don't forget, AIC is here today to thank your little brother. Miss Tiona. Miss Tyugni. Rufia almost instinctively chased after her. Please don't run so fast. In the blink of an eye, Leafia, Tiona, and Tiorn all rushed into the inn. These guys. Riveria frowned but sighed helplessly. He doesn't know his limits either. Well, being lively is a good thing. Noah smiled. No one would want to stay in a lifeless clan tribe. If the atmosphere between the members of the clan tribe on the front line is relatively relaxed, the members below should also feel relaxed, right? AIC did not say anything, but she nodded in agreement. Although they hadn't known each other for a long time, Noah had already understood that AIC wasn't as cold as she looked. She was just not good at expressing her emotions, or it could be said that she was more innocent and natural. Therefore, there was no doubt that AIC also liked such an atmosphere. Riveria actually didn't dislike this, but as a member of the Elven royal family, even if she wasn't old-fashioned in her thinking, she still had a strict side to her. She didn't want her companions in the clan to be too noisy in the presence of outsiders, right? Under such circumstances, Noah, AIC, and Riveria entered the inn. Welcome. Just like the first time Noah came, a shop assistant dressed as a waiter came out to greet him as soon as he entered the inn. However, it was different from the last time Noah came. This time it wasn't the playful and cute Sheer who came out to greet him, but another young girl. She was a young girl with long ears and light blonde curly hair that reached her shoulders. She had a cold expression and gave off a cool vibe. Seeing the pair of long ears, Noah was somewhat surprised. An elf? Yes. It seemed like it wasn't the first time that the elf girl had encountered such a reaction. She just responded indifferently and immediately began to greet them in a businesslike manner. Everyone, please come this way. The elf girl seemed to know the group of first-level adventurers from the clan tribe of Loki, and very politely led Noah, AIC, and Riveria into the inn. In the most conspicuous position in the inn, Tiona was waving her hand in their direction. Little brother. AIC. Riveria. This way. Without Tiona's beckoning, the elf girl naturally led Noah, AIC, and Riveria to the seats where Tiona, Tyugni, and Leafia were seated. After sitting down, the elf girl began to ask unhurriedly. May I ask, what would you like to order? Just as Tiona was about to place her order, Tiona held her back. Didn't I tell you that I'm here to invite this little brother of yours today? Since when was it your turn to order? Tiona immediately lowered her head in dejection. Tiona, AIC said softly as though she couldn't bear to see Tiona's dejected look. You can order what you like too. Really? Tiona's spirits were lifted, and she hugged AIC. Wah, I like AIC the most. Miss Tiona. Rufia said with some dissatisfaction and hesitation. Don't keep hugging Miss AIC. What's wrong, Leafia? Leafia? Tiona smiled mischievously. Are you envious? That's not it. Leafia retorted with a hint of panic. I just feel that it's not good to be hugging in front of so many people. What's wrong with that? Tiona pressed her face against AIC's and giggled. AIC is my special guest. Leafia immediately bit her lips in regret and envy, causing Tyugni and Riveria to break into laughter. AIC obviously didn't dislike Tiona's intimacy, but she was a little embarrassed. Noah didn't dislike this atmosphere either. He chuckled and suddenly thought of something. He turned to the elven girl who had been waiting for them to order. By the way, is Miss Sheer here? Finally, there was a slight change in the elf tribe's pretty face. After a slight pause, she looked at Noah. Do you know Miss Sheer helped me the last time I came to this restaurant. I haven't thanked her yet. Is she busy now? Noah asked. If she is, I won't disturb her. Please help me tell her that I'm very grateful for that time at the bookstore. Understood. The elf girl nodded obediently. Perhaps it was because Noah was acquainted with her companions in the shop, but the cold look on her face melted a little. "I'll pass on your message to Shir. Sorry to trouble you." Noah thanked him and began to order the food. It didn't take long for the elven girl to leave. Looking at the elven girl's back, Noah sighed. "So there is an elven clerk in this restaurant. I didn't notice it the last time I came." The elves were a very unique race. Not only did they have the bloodline to learn innate magic, but they also had an outstanding appearance compared to other races. This made the elves have a relatively high self-esteem. With such self-esteem, it was indeed surprising that they were still working as a clerk in a restaurant. "Her name is Ruleon." Ruveria also looked at the elven girl who was walking to the kitchen. In fact, the owner of this restaurant often takes in some children who have unspeakable difficulties. So almost every clerk here has some unspeakable secrets. That child is just one of them. Hearing this, Noah nodded and expressed his understanding. If there was something unspeakable, then it wouldn't be strange. While waiting for the food to be served, Noah chatted with the group of girls from Rocky's clan. Most of the topics revolved around Noah. After all, Noah had so many unbelievable things, so naturally, it would arouse the curiosity of others. However, at a certain moment, such a voice drilled into Noah's ears. "Oh, isn't this the little devil who has been rumored to be a god recently?" Chapter 888. "Oh, isn't this the little brat who has been rumored to be a god recently?" When such an ear-piercing voice, which seemed to have been deliberately increased in volume, reverberated throughout the noisy hotel, the noise level of the entire hotel began to decrease. Noah and the others, who were chatting happily, were also attracted by the voice. They turned their heads and looked at the source of the voice. What they saw was a group of adventurers sitting next to Noah and the others. The group of adventurers seemed to have just come in from outside the door. There were no dishes on the table, and it was still very clean. This group of adventurers was a combination of orcs, dwarves, and Amazons. There were about 7 or 8 of them, and they were all equipped with armor and leather armor. They were all carrying weapons. It was as if they were not here to drink and eat, but to go to war. The words just now came from the mouth of one of the orc adventurers. And this orc at this time was turning his body sideways and looking in a direction with a mocking expression. That direction was where Noah and the others were. And that line of sight was obviously cast on Noah. In other words, the harsh voice just now was clearly aimed at Noah. Recently, haven't there been a group of gods and high-level adventurers been spreading that a little brat who hasn't even got a title and whose level is at most LV2 can actually fight to a draw with Olali's ultimate weapon? The orc adventurer glanced sideways at Noah and laughed disdainfully. Many of the main gods of the clan tribe seemed to have the idea of poaching this little brat. Why don't they think about whether it's more of a show? Anyway, I don't believe it. The orc adventurer purposely yelled at his companions as he said that. "Hey, do you believe it?" The voice full of the intention to find fault resounded in every corner of the noisy hotel, and the people around began to focus their eyes. They also stopped talking and looked like they were ready to watch a good show. And the orc adventurer's companions also very cooperatively laughed one after another. "Of course I don't believe it. It's just those white-eyed gods deliberately creating a lively topic to relieve their boredom. Right? That's right. If a LV2 can challenge a LV7, then we can all become Eulalia's ultimate weapons. That's right." The mocking laughter of a group of people resounded throughout the entire hotel, causing the atmosphere to become oppressive. Not only that, but the group of adventurers also brazenly said harsh words while deliberately not mentioning the name of the person they were mocking. However, their eyes frequently moved in the direction of Noah, their faces full of disdain. AIC and the others started to frown when they saw that expression on his face. Noah glanced at the group of adventurers after realizing that he was being picked on for no reason. Then, he turned his head away as if nothing had happened and drank the free wine provided before the meal. What the hell are those guys doing? Tiona, on the other hand, spoke up for Noah. "You can't do it, so you're jealous? And it seems that they all belong to the same clan." Tiona pouted in the direction of the adventurers. "Look, that coat of arms." Under Tiona's guidance, Noah and the others also turned their eyes in the direction of the group of adventurers. They saw that on the shoulders of the group of adventurers, there was a coat of arms engraved with a golden bow and a burning sun. including the orc adventurer. The group of adventurers all belonged to the same clan. That's... Riveria seemed to recognize the coat of arms. Isn't that the coat of arms of Apollo's clan? Apollo's clan? AIC Leafia, Tiona, and Tiona all raised their eyebrows. Apollo's clan? Noah's eyes narrowed slightly. Apollo. This deity was very famous. Of course, that was referring to myths. In this world, Noah had yet to see Apollo, so he didn't know what kind of god Apollo was. However, this follower of Apollo was the first to find fault with Noah. The way I see it, there's an 80% chance that he drank some elixir accidentally made by a famous pharmacist, and somehow got a temporary boost in strength. That's why he dares to show off in front of the fierce one, right? The orc adventurer repeatedly raised his voice, trying his best to ridicule. Or maybe it's not a person, but a humanoid monster that came out of the dungeon? The adventurers sitting at the same table as the orc adventurer all burst into laughter. Even the surrounding guests began to laugh more or less. Those guys. Tiona couldn't help but want to stand up, but she was hugged by Leafia, who was sitting beside her. Miss Tiona, don't cause trouble. Tiona, calm down. Riveria calmly said. If you make a move, it will cause a lot of trouble. They're not laughing at us. Tiona folded her arms. If we don't make a move, then little brother's position will become even more difficult. Tiona. AIC also looked at Tiona and shook her head. Don't be rash. But. Tiona looked angrily at Noah, who was leisurely drinking his wine. Little brother, don't you feel angry when they say that about you? To be honest, I really don't. Noah acted as though he didn't hear anything. Or rather, he simply ignored the adventurers and smiled. If I get angry when people find fault with me, then I'll probably be angry every day for a year. After all, it wasn't the first time that people found fault with Noah. Even if Noah had a strong and domineering side, he wouldn't go so far as to pick a fight with those small fries. Otherwise, when Noah was in the world of Dark Bullet, he would have been tired out by those small fries in the name of eliminating the cursed child. Although I can't say that I'm used to it, I won't go so far as to pick a fight with some guys who are just talking nonsense. Noah's expression was indifferent. In the case that they haven't touched my bottom line yet. Hearing this sentence, AIC Riveria, Leafia, Tiona, and Tiona looked at each other. Why does this sentence sound like it won't be long before the other party touches Noah's bottom line? Ignoring those adventurers who had been laughing at them, Noah and the group of girls of Loki's clan directly ignored them and once again laughed and chatted with each other. Seeing this scene, the surrounding guests who were ready to watch a good show also turned their heads away in disappointment and continued to drink and fool around, restoring the lively atmosphere of the hotel. As a result, the adventurers who were mocking the adventurers were like clowns trying to amuse the crowd. And this undoubtedly annoyed the other party. It was just like what Noah had said. For small fries like this, the best way was to ignore them. However, the more you ignored them, the more arrogant they would be. Then, when the other party was arrogant to a certain extent, what would they do? There was no doubt that they would step on Noah's bottom line. Just as Noah and the group of girls of Loki's clan were laughing and chatting, the orc adventurer suddenly picked up a free drink on the table and sneered. Sorry, my hand slipped. After that, the orc adventurer directly threw the glass of drink in the direction of Noah. However, at the same time, another glass of drink was suddenly thrown into the air, and fiercely hit the drink thrown by the orc adventurer. Bang! With a clear muffled sound, the two glasses of drinks fell at the same time, spilling all the drinks inside. Coincidentally, all the poured drinks were all splashed in the direction of the orc adventurer. The orc adventurer even maintained the motion of throwing the wine glass, and then the fragrant wine splashed in front of him. Pa! As if being slapped in the face, all the wine in the air splashed on the orc adventurer's face, drenching his head and clothes. The orc adventurer couldn't even react and just stood there blankly with a silly look on his face. In this regard, Noah just glanced at the orc adventurer and said faintly, Sorry, my hand slipped. Suddenly, the tense atmosphere of the scene exploded. Chapter 889. You stinking brat. The orc adventurer who had been splashed with wine finally reacted, and a furious expression appeared on his face. Not only that, all the adventurers who were sitting with the orc adventurer all stood up, clenched the weapons in their hands, and looked fiercely in the direction of Noah's group. Seeing this, Noah's eyes flashed, and even Riveria's expression changed. As for the surrounding guests, they were not surprised but happy. Oh, are they going to fight? Yay! Let's fight! Similar voices continued to come from the surroundings. As if being indulged by such voices, the orc adventurer was the first to raise his weapon. Stinking brat! I'll make you regret this! After saying that, led by the orc adventurer, a group of adventurers from Apollo's clan was about to rush in the direction of Noah, but a faint voice broke in. Sorry to keep you waiting. After saying that, the elf girl, who was also the shop assistant called Lou by Riveria, walked towards Noah's table with the dishes in her hands. She didn't seem to notice the aggressive group of adventurers from Apollo's family at all. She ignored the hostile atmosphere and walked straight to Noah's table. These are the dishes you ordered, please enjoy. After saying that, the elf girl began to put the dishes on the table of Noah's group. Her movements looked slow, and she didn't care about the dangerous atmosphere at all. Her expression was still indifferent. This made AIC's group a little strange. Even Noah was a little speechless. Even Noah's group was like this. The group of adventurers from Apollo's clan was even more embarrassed. Stinking bitch! The orc adventurer angrily cursed. Do you want to die? However, as soon as the voice fell, the elf girl's gaze swept toward the orc adventurer. It was a gaze filled with coldness and callousness. It was extremely sharp, causing one's heart to shrink and the air to freeze. The orc adventurer who was yelling at the elf girl's face stiffened, and he was frozen in place by the extraordinary pressure. Noah also felt the extraordinary pressure from the elf girl's body, and his brows slightly raised. In such a situation, the elf girl said lightly, I don't want to be rough in the shop, but if someone wants to be rough in the shop, then I can only make a move. From the elf girl's tone, no one could hear the meaning of flaunting her superiority. It gave people the feeling that if the elf girl made a move, then the adventurers from Apollo's clan would absolutely not be able to touch a hair of her. You! The orc adventurer's face suddenly turned green and then white, as if he was about to become angry and desperate. But at this moment the elf girl made a move. Duh! In an extremely subtle sound, the elf girl suddenly raised one of her hands. In that hand a kodachi silently appeared. Except for Noah, Ace, Riveria, Tiona, and Tioni. No one saw when the kodachi appeared in the elf girl's hand. Of course, the group of clowns from Apollo's clan led by the orc adventurer didn't notice it either. They immediately understood that the elf girl's ability was absolutely proportional to her attitude, and it was definitely not something they could reach. Remember this. The group of adventurers from Apollo's clan all fled toward the direction of the door with a pale face. At the same time, the kodachi in the elf girl's hand disappeared without a trace as if it had never appeared before. She returned to the feeling of an ordinary hotel clerk. But clearly seeing the scene just now, no one in the room would treat the elf girl as an ordinary clerk again. The way they looked at the elf girl completely changed. Only the people at Noah's table were still so calm. What the hell? Tioni couldn't help but complain. Since you want to run, then don't look for trouble from the beginning. That's right. Tioni mercilessly made fun of him. So lame. Noah shook his head with a smile, then turned his head and looked at the elf girl. Ms. Lu, thank you for your help. Please don't mention it. The elf girl didn't seem to care about this matter at all. She just looked to the side. I was also asked by a friend. As if to prove the authenticity of the elf girl's words, a playful and cute girl poked her head out from the kitchen and stuck out her tongue at Noah. That was naturally Sheer. I see. Noah said helplessly. I was helped by Miss Sheer again. Sheer rarely asks me for help directly, but when she saw that you were in trouble, she immediately asked me to help you. I'm sure that in Sheer's heart, you must be an important friend, right? The elf girl's face was stern, and her tone was quite indifferent. However, the words she said were not as cold as it seemed on the surface. Since you are Sheer's friend, then I should help you. With that said, the elf girl revealed a faint smile that was difficult to notice. Moreover, you seem to be a strong and gentle person. Noah was confused. How do you say that? The one who answered Noah's question was not the elf girl, but Leafia, who was on the side. That's right. Leafia nodded repeatedly. Mr. Noah must be a strong and gentle person. Ah, Noah blinked. Why do you say that? Because. Leafia lowered her head with her cheeks slightly blushing. When the first time we met, you touched my head and I didn't resist. Didn't resist? Noah was even more confused. Didn't resist? Tiona and Tyogni looked at each other. Didn't resist? The elf girl was obviously a little surprised. She frowned and immediately looked straight at Noah. Sorry, I was rude. After saying that, without giving Noah a chance to react, the elf girl reached out her hand, grabbed Noah's hand and held it tightly. When she held Noah's hand tightly, the elf girl hesitated for a moment. However, that hesitation, after successfully holding Noah's hand, turned into surprise. Holding Noah's hand tightly, the elf girl stared blankly at Noah's face and murmured. He really didn't resist. Being held by a girl he met for the first time, and with such behavior Noah couldn't help but feel awkward. He looked at Riveria. Can you explain the current situation? Don't you know? When Riveria saw that the elf girl held Noah's hand and didn't resist Noah, her expression towards Noah became much gentler. Although it's a little strange for me to say this as an elf royalty, the elves do have a kind of misophobia that is hard to compliment. Under normal circumstances, they would never allow those who they don't approve of to touch any part of their body. Not to mention someone they just met. Leafia nodded her little head. Only the gentle and righteous people will not be rejected by the elves. The touch of the ugly and lustful people will never be accepted by the elves. It's just a word. The Amazon sisters Tiona and Tyogni laughed at the same time. You're a good person. Noah was speechless when such an obvious card was given. You're indeed Shear's friend. The elf girl seemed to have reacted. She let go of Noah's hand without hesitation, and the extremely faint smile on her face became slightly more obvious. You're a person worthy of respect. Even Noah looked a little unnatural when he was praised by the elf girl so openly, but Noah didn't notice it. When the elf girl held Noah's hand and held it tightly, beside her, AIC's clear and transparent eyes slightly fluctuated a few times. Only AIC knew. At the moment when the elf girl held Noah's hand, there was a trace of inexplicable strangeness in her heart. It was as if AIC didn't really want to see the elf girl holding Noah's hand. With one hand on her heart, AIC murmured with some confusion. Why? Chapter 890. In order to let AIC learn crushing magic, Noah went out early in the morning and went to the agreed place with AIC, which was the direction of Eulalia's city wall. After a lot of twists and turns in the middle plus chatting and drinking in the Rich Mistress, when Noah came out of the Rich Mistress, it was almost noon. Then little brother, we'll go back first. We had a good chat, let's continue next time. The Amazon sisters Tiona and Tiona said goodbye to Noah in front of the hotel, and they were quite enthusiastic. People who didn't know would think that these two girls were acting friendly. AIC didn't directly say anything, but she just looked at Noah as usual. Rafia, who was on the side, glared at Noah, making Noah speechless. Riveria slightly moved closer to Noah, put her mouth close to Noah's ear, and said in a mosquito-like voice, "Be careful, those adventurers of the Apollo family may not just want to find trouble with you." Noah's heart skipped a beat, but he didn't say anything on the surface. He just nodded with a smile. Then let's part here, we'll have a meal together in the future. Okay. In the voice of Tiona and Tiona, Noah turned around, waved his hand, and plunged into the crowd under the gaze of a group of Loki family girls. After a while, he disappeared into the crowd. Miss AIC. Rafia said to AIC, who had been looking at the direction where Noah left. Let's go. AIC nodded, and one of her hands involuntarily touched the magic activation bracelet on her wrist, then turned around and left with her companions. In the crowd, Noah walked leisurely, but he didn't bump into a single person. While walking forward, he chuckled. Did Riveria discover it as well? When the group of adventurers from Apollo's spawn blatantly showed signs of attacking, Noah more or less sensed that they had other motives. It was because A's, Riveria, Leafia, Tiona, and Tyan were by Noah's side. The adventurers of Apollo's family were all superior adventurers. However, they were not great adventurers. At most they were level 3 adventurers, which was LV. 2 adventurers. That was why even if the adventurers felt that Noah had used some kind of trick to force Otto back, there was no need to be afraid of him. However, the ranks of A's, Reveria, Leafia, Tiona, and Tyon were the real deal. There was absolutely no falsification. Ace and Reveria were LV6. Tiona and Tiona were LV5. Although Leafia did not have the strength of a level 1 adventurer, she was still LV3. As the celebrities of Loki's spawn, the strength of these girls was widely known. There was almost no adventurer who didn't know these celebrities of Loki's spawn, including Apollo's spawn. And knowing that A's and her party were beside Noah and sitting at the same table, they seemed to have a good relationship. It was obvious that they were on Noah's side, but the adventurers of Apollo's spawn still planned to attack. Wasn't this strange? At least, Noah felt that the adventurers of Apollo's spawn were definitely not just looking for trouble. Sure enough, in this world, I'm destined to be entangled with all kinds of troubles. After leaving such a remark, Noah put all these matters to the back of his mind and quickened his pace in the direction of his home. Right now, there was too little information. Even if he knew what the adventurers of Apollo's spawn were planning, it was impossible to know the truth in one go. Maybe it's not those adventurers who are planning to do something? Noah muttered to himself with a deep meaning. Soon after, he smiled and stopped thinking about it. Then he walked in the direction of his home. Unfortunately, even Noah didn't have the ability to predict the future. Therefore, it was impossible for Noah to know. In fact, trouble has already come to him. Huh? When Noah returned to the base camp of Hestia's clan, the scene that appeared in front of him made him stop in his tracks. In front of the base camp belonging to Noah, Hestia, and Bel, all the pedestrians on the street were divided into two sides, pointing at the location of the base camp of Hestia's spawn. In front of the base camp of Hestia's spawn, a large group of adventurers was surrounding it, as if they were planning to surround the base camp of Hestia's spawn. They were holding weapons in their hands, making the atmosphere quite tense. From Noah's position, he could see that in front of the adventurers surrounding the base camp of Hestia's spawn, there were two people. No, it should be said that there was a god and a man. The god was a male god. He had blonde hair that was as bright as the sun. He was very handsome, and even the smile on his face was dazzling. He was very tall, and he wore a laurel crown with green leaves on his head. Next to the male god was a man who wasn't as handsome as the former, but he was also extraordinarily handsome. Led by the god and the man, a group of adventurers with more than 100 members surrounded the base camp of Hestia's spawn. Noah clearly saw it. Those adventurers all had golden arrows and blazing suns engraved on their bodies. Impressively, it was the same as those adventurers that Noah met in the morning at the place of the Mistress of Fertility. Apollo's spawn. Those adventurers were all members of the Apollo's spawn. So, Noah looked at the god and the man in the lead and narrowed his eyes. That is Apollo and Jacinthus, right? Needless to say, there was no other person who could lead so many adventurers of the Apollo's spawn, except for Apollo himself. Apollo's spawn was quite famous in Eulalie. In terms of power, the Apollo's spawn was the backbone of all the spawn in Eulalie's spawn. Not to mention the high level of faction power and adventurers, this spawn had many crusades against the floor master of the 17th floor, who was level 4 Goliath. They were much more powerful than the average spawn. Jacinthus was the leader of the Apollo's spawn. His title was Beloved of the Sun, and his level had reached level 3. He belonged to the second level of adventurers. The Lord God and the leader are all going to personally lead the team? Noah rubbed his eyebrows. Sure enough, trouble has come to the door. When Noah was a little annoyed, the door of the base camp of Hestia's spawn was opened. Hestia, who came out of the house, was startled by the big battle in front of her, and then her face became serious. Apparently, she also realized the seriousness of the matter. However, Hestia was still a god, and she couldn't be scared by such a battle in front of her. After she became serious, she looked at Apollo. Apollo, what the hell are you doing? Good afternoon, Hestia. Ignoring Hestia's stare, Apollo politely greeted her, and then said with a dazzling smile, I'm sorry, Hestia. Although we have a close relationship, this matter is really intolerable, so I can only do this. Please forgive me. Who has a close relationship with you? Hestia seemed to have goosebumps all over her body, and her face was full of disgust. I'm warning you, Apollo, I'm a god respected as the virgin goddess. If you intend to tarnish my reputation, I have the right to go to the guild and report you. Oh, I'm really sorry, I take back what I just said. Apollo pressed his chest as if he was a little sad. However, no matter how one looked at it, it was more like a show. The reason was that people who were really sad wouldn't hide a faint smile in their eyes. Furthermore, that smile was clearly filled with malicious intentions. Hestia had a bad premonition when she found out that he had bad intentions. I'll be frank here, Hestia. At this time, Apollo's face once again had a dazzling smile like the sun, and he said such a sentence in front of everyone present. I hope you can hand over your child, Noah Dole. Chapter 891. I hope you can hand over your child, Noah Doria. When these words echoed from Apollo's mouth, everyone except the onlookers fell into an indescribable silence. That bastard gossip god. Looking carefully, the gods who came to join in the fun were hiding in the surrounding buildings or on top of them. Many of them began to gnash their teeth as they looked down at Apollo, who was in front of the headquarters of Hestia's family. It should be noted that Apollo wasn't the only one who had taken a fancy to Noah. Almost all of these gods also had designs on Noah, but they weren't as brazen as Apollo. You. Hestia's eyes widened as she spoke without hesitation. Why? Why should I? Apollo smiled confidently. Just because of your child, my child is seriously injured. After saying this, Apollo waved to the people next to him. There, a group of Apollo's minions carried a few stretchers over. There were people lying on these stretchers one after another. Moreover, all of them were screaming in pain. Their bodies were tightly wrapped in bandages, and only their eyes and faces were exposed. Looking at the people who were tightly wrapped in bandages and still lying on the stretchers and screaming in pain, Noah narrowed his eyes in the crowd. Because those people were the adventurers of Apollo's family, who were looking for trouble with Noah in the Mistress of Plenty. However, Noah didn't remember beating them up like this. Or rather, apart from the orc adventurer who was drenched in wine, all the other adventurers of Apollo's spawn were left in the same state they were in when they entered the Mistress of Plenty. Since when were they injured by anyone? Moreover, anyone with a discerning eye could tell. Those guys lying on the stretchers were screaming miserably, but they were rolling around and fighting so vigorously. They didn't look like they were seriously injured at all. In other words, those guys were all just putting on a show. Look at them, my poor children. They were beaten up by your children. My heart is broken, Apollo said sadly as he covered his chest with his hand. Hestia, tell me, how could you do that to your child? You're lying. How could Noah beat people up for no reason? Hestia was so angry that she trembled. And are you looking down on me? I'm a god after all. Do you think I can't see that your children are all acting? The gods in the surrounding buildings nodded in agreement. For these gods who had lived for God knows how many years, the tricks of the people in the lower realm were too naive. It didn't take much effort for them to see through all of it. This was especially true when it came to lying and acting. It was impossible that Apollo didn't know this. However, he still had an innocent look on his face. Hestia, I know it's our instinct to cover up for our children, but sometimes when our children do something wrong, we have to take responsibility. Only then can our children grow up. In a single sentence, he took Hestia's words as an attempt to cover up for Noah. However, apart from the gods, not many of the onlookers could tell that the minions of Apollo were putting on an act. They immediately believed Apollo's words and started whispering to each other. Hestia was so angry that her face turned red. However, Hestia knew what kind of god Apollo was. No matter what she did, this god would be very despicable and unreasonable. Even though his behavior was very elegant, his actions were enough to be called shameless. This was the god known as Apollo. Seeing Hestia's extremely angry and helpless expression, Noah knew that he couldn't hide anymore. At that moment, Noah directly separated the crowd and walked into the encirclement of the adventurers of Apollo's spawn. Noah's action naturally attracted the attention of everyone present. Seeing Noah slowly walking out of the crowd, Hestia's face lit up. The surrounding adventurers looked at each other in confusion. The onlookers were in an uproar. The gods hiding in the buildings were excited and shouted, "Here comes the climax." In addition to these gods and people, Apollo and Jacinthus, who were standing in front of the adventurers of Apollo's family, had a different reaction. Jacinthus' face turned cold, and his eyes were full of hostility and malice when he looked at Noah. There was even a hint of jealousy in his eyes, as if he was jealous of something. A disgusting and obscene smile appeared on Apollo's face, and the gaze he looked at Noah became extremely hot, as if he wanted to eat Noah. It was very explicit. "Ah, lovely child, you finally appeared." Being stared at by Apollo with such a hot gaze, Noah's footsteps suddenly stopped. Noah had encountered this kind of scorching gaze more than once since he came to this world. And those gazes all came from Freya. At this time, Apollo's gaze was exactly the same as Freya's. In other words, this god was the same as the beautiful goddess, and they both had the same feelings of love for Noah. The difference was that when Freya looked at Noah, there was a possessiveness that was proportional to the love in her eyes. And Apollo's gaze towards Noah was directly proportional to the love, evil lust. The most important difference was that Freya was at least a woman, but Apollo was a man. A man actually used such a vulgar gaze to look at another man? Noah did not know what others were thinking. Noah only knew that if Freya's gaze only made him feel uncomfortable, then Apollo's gaze made Noah really angry. Without any hesitation, Noah turned his head, met Apollo's hot gaze, and said such a sentence. "If you look at me like that again, believe it or not, I will gouge your eyeballs out." Such an extremely calm sentence seemed to bring a chill to the entire world, causing all the gods and humans present to feel a chill in their hearts and tremble. The smile on Apollo's face was completely frozen. As for Jacinthus, who had been standing beside Apollo, he suddenly raised his eyes, stared at Noah, and said coldly, "Take back what you just said." Hearing this, Noah glanced at Jacinthus and spat out a word. "Get lost." Jacinthus's negative feelings towards Noah were successfully ignited. Clang! Without any hesitation, Jacinthus pulled out the sword at his waist. It was a wavy sword with a body that undulated up and down like a wave. Holding the wavy sword in his hand, Jacinthus stomped on the ground, and the long sword vibrated, creating a sharp gust of wind. The tip of the sword carried a cold arc of light, and Jacinthus's whole body shot out. Almost in the blink of an eye, Jacinthus arrived in front of Noah. "Noah!" Hestia's face turned pale with fright. Not only Hestia, but all the gods and mortals who were watching from the side were also shocked. Amidst the exclamations, Jacinto's sharp sword tip suddenly shot out and pierced towards Noah's throat. It was clear that Jacinthus intended to kill Noah on the spot. Just as everyone was waiting for the bloody scene to appear, the tip of the sword that was less than 1 centimeter away from Noah's throat suddenly stopped as if it was frozen in space. This was because a hand tightly grasped Jacinthus's hand that was holding the sword, and this extremely fierce blow was forcibly stopped. Jacinthus's face had already changed. Noah slowly raised his eyes and looked at Jacinthus. "It seems that you want me to help you get the hell out of here." After saying this, Noah's foot suddenly moved, and one of his legs suddenly turned into a blurry whip shadow in an instant. With a sharp and ear-piercing sound, it violently swung towards Jacinthus, whose pupils suddenly contracted. Bang! Before everyone around realized what the current situation was, a heavy muffled sound exploded from the field. Chapter 892. Bang! Along with such a muffled sound, a figure suddenly shot out from the center of the field surrounded by the adventurers of Apollo's spawn. Like a kite with a broken string, the figure flew over the crowd above the heads of the adventurers. Bang! Another muffled sound rang out as the figure smashed heavily into the wall of a building, causing cracks to appear on the sturdy wall. Poochie! Soon after, a mouthful of bright red blood was violently spat out from the other party's mouth. His body leaned against the wall and slowly slid down, landing on the ground. Before everyone could react, they subconsciously turned their gazes to the figure that was shot out, smashed into the wall and slid to the ground. When they saw the full appearance of the figure, everyone fell into a deathly silence. There was still a shoe print on Jacinto's chest, and blood was flowing from the corner of his mouth. He was lying on the ground with his back facing the sky. He raised his head with difficulty and looked at Noah, who didn't even move a step. His handsome face was distorted with hatred. You! Seeing Jacinto's being defeated by a single blow, not to mention the crowd, even the adventurers of Apollo's clan were stunned and lost their voices. Jacinto's was a level 2 adventurer at LV3. An adventurer of this level was already considered a big shot in the eyes of the crowd. For the adventurers of Apollo's clan who regarded Jacinto's as their leader, It was easy to imagine the impact of their leader being defeated by a single blow. Therefore, when Jacintos targeted Noah with a voice full of hatred, Apollo was the first to react. "You dare to openly attack a member of my clan?" Apollo stared at Noah with a smile on his face. "Aren't you afraid that the guild will ban Hestia's clan?" Although there would be conflicts if there were factions on the surface, the guild absolutely forbade the creation of conflicts between clan members. After all, there were not only people who received the grace of God in Eulalia, but there were also ordinary people. If the members of the clan tribe who could destroy a building with a single magic spell and cause a huge loss were allowed to do as they pleased, then the safety of ordinary citizens would not be guaranteed. Therefore, the guild absolutely forbade the battle between the spawns. Once violated, they would be punished according to the situation. Apollo probably wanted to use this to threaten Noah, right? Unfortunately, Noah didn't know how many times he had seen this kind of trick. It is said that people's eyes can be blurred, but can God's eyes also be blurred? Noah curled his lips. "I'm just asking just now how many people here saw me or that idiot who attacked first. Please answer me." The smile on Apollo's face froze. Lying on the ground, Jacinthus, who had been struggling to get up, looked at Noah angrily. The surrounding onlookers looked at each other and began to whisper. "There are so many people here who can testify that it was that idiot who suddenly attacked me, and I was just defending myself." Noah looked at Apollo with a trace of sarcasm in his eyes. "Undoubtedly you are a god. It's okay if you don't have a good method, but if your eyes are blurred, then your billions of years of life are probably really wasted." Noah's merciless words made the surrounding onlookers all make an uproar. Even Apollo was stunned and didn't react at all. That was natural. Even if he came to the lower realm and lived like an ordinary person, Apollo was still a god who was respected by the people in the lower realm. Such a god was actually despised by Noah in front of so many people. Who wouldn't feel shocked? However, Noah's words weren't finished yet. "Also, you purposely sent your men to the hotel to cause trouble for me. That was your trick too, wasn't it?" Noah glanced at the adventurers lying on the stretchers. "First let us have a conflict, then slander me in this way. Although this method is ordinary, it is quite effective." With such a sentence, Noah raised a hand. "Unfortunately, I don't buy it." After that, golden ripples suddenly fluctuated in the space around Noah's body, like water waves, imprinted in the space. Then, under everyone's gaze, a variety of luxurious weapons such as sabers, swords, spears, halberds, and so on emerged one by one from the golden ripples. "Hey guys over there." As if controlling the space, Noah, who was standing in front of the golden ripples, glanced at the adventurers lying on the stretchers who were looking at him with dull eyes and suddenly smiled. "If you don't dodge, you'll die." It was as if he wanted to confirm the truth of Noah's words. In the next moment, the sharp weapons that emerged from the golden ripples suddenly vibrated, and like golden water droplets, they burst out and shrouded the direction of the stretchers. If those who have seen Noah's Gate of Babylon fighting style were here, they would definitely notice. This time, the speed of the noble phantoms launched from Noah's Gate of Babylon was frighteningly slow. Even the adventurers of the Apollo clan, who were wrapped in bandages and lying on stretchers, could clearly see the sharp weapons that were shooting towards them like raindrops. Woo 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 woo. All of a sudden, the adventurers of Apollo's minions who were lying on the stretchers with their bodies wrapped in bandages screamed in fear. Without any hesitation, they jumped up and dodged in a panic. Clang 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 clang. As a result, the treasures that shot out landed on the empty stretchers one by one. Amidst the sounds of metal clashing against the ground, the treasures pierced through the stretchers one by one, riddling them with holes. The entire place once again returned to its deathly silent state. The onlookers were speechless as they watched the adventurers of Apollo's minions run away. Their bodies were wrapped in bandages, but their movements were faster than anything else. Apollo's face changed, and he secretly shouted in his heart, "What? Aren't you full of vigor?" Noah lowered his raised hand. When the golden ripples and the noble phantoms disappeared, he looked at Apollo and sneered. "If this is considered a serious injury, then there is probably no one who will die in this world. It seems that the famous god Apollo really dotes on his children. Even if they are not sick or in pain, he can't wait for them to lie down every day. Don't mess around outside. I can only say that I'm impressed." You. Apollo's handsome face turned pale, but he couldn't utter a single word. The truth was right in front of him, so what else could he say? However, after a while, Apollo seemed to have thought it through. He took a deep breath and revealed a dazzling smile. No wonder you're so obsessed with Goddess Freya. You can even resist her charm. You're really outstanding. When I saw your performance at Freya's family banquet that day, I was attracted by your excellence. Adorable child, do you really not want to consider coming to my side? The one who answered Apollo's question was not Noah, but Hestia. Don't even think about it. Hestia hugged Noah and looked at Apollo with an evil expression. Even if I give Noah to anyone, I won't give him to you, a pervert who doesn't reject anyone. Is that so? Apollo's smile did not change. But this time it's not up to you. As soon as he finished speaking, the adventurers of Apollo's family suddenly separated and pressed a person forward. That person was tied up by the adventurers of Apollo's family. His mouth was gagged and he was pushed in front of everyone. Seeing this person, Hestia cried out in surprise. Baal. Chapter 893. Wu. Wu. Baal, who was tied up by Apollo's minions, kept whimpering unwillingly through the cloth stuffed in his mouth. His body was also struggling. Behave yourself. The two members of Apollo's spawn who had brought Baal with his hands tied behind his back shouted angrily. One of them even kicked Baal, causing him to fall to the ground. Baal's body wasn't unscathed. Instead, there were bruises all over his body. Obviously, Baal had tried to resist, but was met with violence. Perhaps the members of Apollo's minions had planned to kidnap Baal. When they received the news that Noah and Baal had parted ways, they immediately arranged for people to capture Baal when he was about to enter the dungeon in the morning. Needless to say, Baal had just received Hestia's favor for less than a month. In addition, he was only at LV1, so it was impossible for him to be a match for the adventurers of Apollo's minions. Hestia's beautiful face finally showed true anger. Apollo. I'm sorry, Hestia. Your child is weak and timid, but he is surprisingly tough. In order to catch him, we have to be a little rough with him. Apollo shrugged and said with a smile that was as bright as the sun. Everything is for the sake of getting a cute child. You should understand. It's not good to monopolize such a cute child, Hestia. You. Hestia immediately understood what Apollo meant. Are you trying to threaten us with Baal? I have no choice. It's all because I have no choice. Apollo's bright smile looked extremely ugly under his despicable behavior. As long as you give me this child called Noah, I'll return this child to you. What do you think? Hestia bit her lips and looked at Apollo with disgust, anger, and hatred. After realizing that he was used as a bargaining chip to threaten his family, Baal's face was filled with remorse. He struggled even more violently, and tears of humiliation flowed from his eyes. Enraged by Baal's desperate struggle, the two adventurers from Apollo's spawn smacked their lips. Didn't I tell you to behave yourself? Suddenly, the two adventurers raised one foot at the same time, intending to kick Baal. Baal was shocked. He quickly closed his eyes and braced himself for the coming pain. Bang! In the next instant, a muffled sound rang out. Goo! A muffled groan was heard as well. No, it was not a single sound. Instead, it was two groans that overlapped each other. Immediately afterward, the two adventurers from Apollo's clan who pushed Baal over followed the same fate as Ikintos. They were shot backward like bullets and smashed into the walls of the surrounding buildings. Their heads tilted to one side, and they passed out. Baal, who did not feel the pain he imagined, opened his eyes with palpitations. Then, Baal realized that the two adventurers from Apollo's clan who pushed him down had disappeared. His body suddenly floated in the air, and when he landed on the ground again, his position had changed. Baal is no longer surrounded by Apollo's minions. Instead, he has arrived beside Hestia at an unknown time. Baal. Hestia was startled. What? Apollo and the people around him were all shocked. What's going on? The gods who were hiding in the buildings all opened their eyes wide. They looked surprised. In the eyes of these people, Baal was about to face the violent confrontation between the two adventurers of Apollo's spawn, but in the next second, the two adventurers of Apollo's spawn were sent flying. At the same time, Bel inexplicably moved from Apollo's side to Hestia's side as if he had teleported. Everything happened in an extremely baffling manner. Only Noah was half kneeling on the ground. He slowly untied the rope on Baal's body and removed the cloth from Baal's mouth. "How are you? Are you okay, leader?" Baal didn't know how to react. He was at a loss for a moment. Have a good rest." Noah smiled, stood up, and turned around to face Apollo. Apollo couldn't help but take a step back when he saw Noah's eyes. This was because Apollo could see it clearly. In Noah's deep and dark eyes, all the emotions had disappeared. The only thing that remained was the calm before the storm, a calmness that made one's heart tremble. "Hestia," Noah suddenly said. "The guild does have a rule that spawn shouldn't have a direct conflict with each other, right?" "Huh." Hestia didn't react to the sudden change in the situation. She was startled by Noah's question, but she still answered subconsciously. Yes. But when the conflict reaches a certain level, and the two sides can't stop the fight, what should we do?" Noah asked in a voice that was so calm that it was chilling. "Is there no reasonable way to resolve the conflict between the two sides?" Hestia was silent when she heard Noah's question. But after a while, Hestia said with a bitter smile, "Don't worry. Although I don't know if it's a way to resolve the conflict, there is a game that allows both sides to fight legally." "A game?" Noah asked directly. "What kind of game?" "A war game." Hestia answered Noah's question with a serious tone. "It's a kind of game where you apply to the guild, let the gods be witnesses, and let the two main gods who decide the battle set the rules, let the members of the clan fight, and the god who wins can control the life and death of the defeated party, and can make any request." "Is that so?" Noah suddenly smiled. That couldn't be better. Apollo already had a bad feeling when Noah asked Hestia the question as if there was no one else around. Now that he saw Noah's emotionless smile, the bad feeling in Apollo's heart became even stronger. Apollo's lips trembled as he asked, What do you want to do? If your eyes and morals are bad, then don't let your ears be bad as well." Noah looked around at all the members of Apollo's family. Finally, his gaze stopped on Apollo. "Didn't you hear it just now? Could it be?" Apollo was stunned. "You want to? Let's have a war game." Noah's voice echoed clearly in the surroundings. A war game between Hestia's spawn and Apollo's spawn. The surrounding crowd burst into an uproar when they heard Noah's words. From the buildings, the gods all came out and shouted excitedly, "Good! It's finally here. It's a war game. Hurry up and agree. Apollo, hurry up and agree." For those gods who loved entertainment, a war game between two spawns was like a popular competition. It was natural that they would be happy to see it. "Are you sure?" Apollo's face twitched and he forced a smile. "No matter how strong you are, there are only two people in your spawn. My spawn is hundreds of times more than yours. Are you sure you want to play a war game?" Noah did not answer Apollo's question. Instead, he glanced at the members of Apollo's family. "Trash like this, no matter how many of you come, it will be a waste." With just one sentence, he successfully infuriated all of Apollo's minions, as well as Apollo himself. "Okay," Apollo replied loudly. "I'll accept your suggestion of a war game." All the gods who had been waiting for this moment cheered loudly. Even the onlookers in the surroundings were excited and started to shout loudly. From the beginning to the end, Hestia did not make any reaction. It was as if she had known Noah's plan when he asked her the question. She just looked at Noah. There was no blame in her eyes, only trust. Noah smiled from the bottom of his heart. Chapter 894. Hiss. In the base camp of Hestia's clan, Baal, who was supported by Noah, immediately let out a painful groan as soon as he sat on the sofa. Although he did not suffer any serious injuries, Bear's body was covered with bruises. It was obvious that he had been beaten up by Apollo's minions. That bastard Apollo! Seeing her own clan members being beaten up like this, Hestia was like a mother and flew into a rage. "I should have known that guy would not hesitate to use any means in order to dig Noah into his clan. That pervert has always been like this. Has it always been like this?" Noah turned his head and looked at Hestia. "Does that disgusting god always do this kind of thing? Don't you know?" Hestia's pretty face was filled with extreme disgust. More than 80% of that Prince Charming's family members were chased by him using all kinds of methods and shameless methods of pestering. Pursued. Noah was stunned and said with some uncertainty, "Did you just say pursued?" "Yes." Hestia's face was full of displeasure, as if she had swallowed something disgusting. Apollo is famous for being an affectionate Prince Charming, and he doesn't reject anyone. No matter if it's a man or a woman, as long as he has his eyes on someone, he will get them. The gods even gave him a name, Love of Sorrow. That guy's willingness to reject anyone has reached a level that is incomprehensible to people. Hearing Hestia's words, Noah was speechless. At first, when Apollo looked at Noah with such a burning gaze, Noah thought that it was because he had taken a fancy to his abilities. Like the other gods, Apollo wanted to poach him into the family tribe and use him for himself. However, from Hestia's words, although he did not want to think so, Noah had to be sure that the disgusting god really treated him with the same feelings as Freya. No matter if it was a man or a woman, as long as Apollo had his eyes on someone, he would woo them. After thinking about it carefully, Noah also felt that most of the members of Apollo's minions were indeed good-looking men and women. Even Jacinthus was extraordinarily handsome. It seemed that those guys were all Apollo's playthings. A god who crossed the boundary of gender and was known for his love. That was why the other gods called Apollo the god of gossip. That was why Hestia called Apollo a pervert. It seems that Apollo was also present at Freya's banquet last time. He also saw the confrontation between you and Orly's ultimate weapon, and because of that, he fell in love with you. Hestia's expression as if she had chewed a piece of wax, and said something that made her feel a little nauseous. Undoubtedly, he knew that Freya had her eyes on you, but he still dared to use such a blatant method to get you. Isn't he afraid that the beauty will go crazy and be destroyed by Freya's minions? He's crazy. Although Apollo's minions were considered the backbone of Orly's forces, Freya's minions were truly one of Orly's most powerful minions. In a situation where even their leader was only LV3, if Freya's minions were to attack, they could destroy Apollo's minions in minutes. Knowing that Noah had been chosen by Freya, Apollo still dared to use such a method to force Noah. If something went wrong, Freya might really be angry and destroy Apollo's minions. Although for Noah, Freya, who used the method of charm to deal with him on their first meeting, was not a goddess that could make him like her. Did Apollo use similar methods to snatch the people in Apollo's minions? Noah recalled Jacinthus's jealous gaze. What about the leader of Apollo's minions? Is he also one of them? The child named Jacinthus. Hestia shook her head. That child's love for Apollo came from the bottom of her heart. In other words, that Jacinthus is also a guy with an abnormal sexual orientation. Noah narrowed his eyes. Such a disgusting minions, it's better to make them disappear. In fact, if it wasn't for the guild's prohibition of direct conflict between the minions, Noah would have already made things difficult. The way Apollo looked at Noah really made Noah feel disgusted. In addition, in order to poach Noah into the minions, that disgusting god also kidnapped and injured the people around Noah. This had already crossed Noah's bottom line. If he didn't do it casually, not only himself, but also Baal and Hestia's minions would be banned by the guild. Noah would never bring up something as troublesome as a war game. Lord God Leader, I'm really sorry. Baal's face was gloomy. It's all because of me that this happened. You're wrong, Baal. Noah patted Baal's shoulder. The fault is definitely not with anyone other than that pervert. You have no reason to be blamed. If there's a reason, the only reason would be me. No matter what, Apollo attacked you because of me. But what should we do? Baal's face was uneasy. Do we really have to play a war game? Baal's heart was full of worries. After all, compared to Apollo's minions, Hestia's minions with only 2 members were too small. Even if Noah's strength was outstanding, Baal didn't know if he could win against so many opponents. Hestia also had the same opinion on this point. The format of the war game hasn't been decided yet. If it's something like occupying the enemy's territory within a certain period of time, then even if Noah is strong enough to rival Eulalia's ultimate weapon, it's basically impossible for him to win. After all, if it was a war game like this, then unless Noah didn't walk out of the territory and occupy the enemy's territory, the enemy could directly send members with strong stealth abilities to occupy the territory when Noah left and win. And if Noah didn't step out of his base and continued to defend his base, Noah wouldn't be able to win as he had no way of occupying the enemy's base. This was the so-called war game. There were many ways to determine the outcome of the war game. It was also because of this that Apollo dared to agree to play a war game even though he knew that Noah was comparable to a LV-7 warrior. However, if the war game was a one-on-one battle, then there was no doubt that Noah would win. There was no doubt about it. In other words, if there were not enough members, Noah and Apollo's chances of winning were almost the same. It all depended on what kind of war game would be played in the end. Of course, Hestia did not know that Noah had the authority to deal with almost any situation, and the Gate of Babylon, which contained all kinds of treasures and items. No matter what the situation was, Noah was confident that he could win. "Baal," Noah suddenly said, "on the day of the war game I will fight alone. You stay by Hestia's side." "Huh?" Baal was shocked and quickly said, "How can that be? How can I watch you fight alone?" Hestia frowned, but she didn't say anything. She chose to believe in Noah. In response, Noah just smiled at Hestia and then said to Baal, "I have my own considerations. I have my own considerations." So Baal, stay by Hestia's side and protect her. Who knows what kind of underhanded tricks Apollo will use? "That should be impossible," Hestia said. "To put it bluntly, the war game is just a proxy war between the gods. For the gods, it's just like a competition, a form of entertainment. If Apollo really intends to use any underhanded means that will affect the outcome of the game, he will definitely become the enemy of all of Eulalia's spawns. If that's the case, then Apollo is really courting death." "It's better to be safe than sorry," Noah said. "In short, you just need to trust me." Hestia and Baal looked at each other and nodded helplessly. Chapter 895. Tap 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 tap. In a luxurious corridor that was as white as a temple, Hestia, who was wearing a formal dress, walked forward with a serious expression on her face. Her footsteps echoed clearly in the surroundings like a melodious song, with a rhythmic sound. "Hestia!" After a while, a very mature female voice called out to Hestia. Hestia stopped and turned around to look behind her. Over there, a tall and slender goddess was also wearing a formal dress. She slowly walked towards Hestia. Seeing the tall and slender goddess, Hestia's tense face slightly relaxed. Hephaestus. She was none other than Hephaestus, the one who had taken Hestia in for quite some time. She was Hestia's best friend and had the nickname of the god of forging, Hephaestus. It had been more than a month since he said goodbye to Hephaestus in the house of Hephaestus's family. In the past month, Hestia hadn't gone to see Hephaestus. So Hestia and Hephaestus hadn't seen each other since she formed her clan with Noah. After all, a month's time was simply too short for a god who had lived for billions of years, and whose life was eternal. Hestia and Hephaestus hadn't seen each other for such a short period of time, so it wasn't enough to make them miss each other. However, Hephaestus wasn't very nice to Hestia. "I didn't expect that in less than 2 months after the formation of your clan, you would dare to fight with the backbone of Apollo's clan. You're quite capable, aren't you? If you want to complain, complain to Apollo." Hestia's face was full of displeasure. Who knows what that pervert is thinking all day long? He suddenly came to find trouble with me. I only know that he has his eyes on my closest child. For him, even if Freya and Loki's clan comes, I won't admit defeat easily, let alone the Backbone clan. In fact, didn't Freya already have her eyes on Noah? Loki seems to have been thinking about him too, right? Hephaestus sighed. "You really don't go a day without trouble. Didn't I tell you?" Hestia turned her head and continued walking forward. "If you want to complain, complain to those guys." "Well, it's not your fault," Hephaestus said with a wry smile as she followed Hestia forward. "Let me say this first. I won't be able to help you much during the meeting. Those gods have been yearning for entertainment for a long time, and none of them will let go of this opportunity. My words won't be of any help to you." Hestia nodded with a heavy heart. The so-called meeting of the gods was actually a gathering organized by a group of gods to relieve boredom. This kind of gathering would be held once in a while, and the interval was usually 3 months. At the gods' meeting that was held once every 3 months, the gods would have a casual chat. They would also exchange the latest information and inquiries from all over the world. At the same time, They would also exchange opinions on various aspects regarding the problems between the gods' families. It could be said that there was a variety of things to be said. Awarding titles to the senior adventurers who had reached LV2 was also part of the meeting. Therefore, although Noah had reached LV2, if he wanted to get a title, he would have to wait until the meeting that was held once every 3 months. Today, the meeting for the war game between Hestia's clan and Apollo's clan began in advance. In this meeting, the gods would be the witnesses and witness the discussion between Hestia and Apollo on the topic of war games. The form of the war game would be decided in the meeting, and the form of the war game would be decided in the meeting. The meeting place of the meeting was on the 30th floor of the Tower of Babel, which was located in the center of Olalai. It was a floor that looked like a temple in the sky. Hestia and Hephaestus walked through the corridor together and entered a very spacious hall. In this hall, there was no furniture except for an oversized round table. Around the round table, gods of all shapes and sizes sat at fixed intervals. Apollo, who was sitting at the head of the table, had been looking in the direction of the entrance. When he saw Hestia, he immediately showed a sunny smile. "You're finally here, Hestia." Hestia's face immediately darkened. Hestia's disgust for Apollo, who wanted to steal Noah by using underhanded means, had already reached its peak. On the contrary, the gods who were watching the fun were very enthusiastic. "Oh, the lowly goddess is also here. Then, can we start the discussion about the war game? Hurry up. I can't wait to see the fun." Hey, don't say what's on your mind. It should be serious here." Hestia and Hephaestus sat down in silence under the laughter of the gods who wanted to make a bigger fuss out of this matter. "Let's make it clear first," Apollo said directly. "If I win, I only want Noah Dole." "You're so direct." Hestia did not hide her astonishment at all. "Undoubtedly, you've been taught a lesson by Noah, and you're still thinking about him?" Noah had not only exposed Apollo's underhanded means one by one in front of all the gods and people of Olalai, but he had also degraded Apollo in public. If it were any other god with a stronger sense of self-esteem, they would have long exploded in anger and wanted to teach Noah a lesson. However, Apollo did not change his mind. He did not even seem to mind at all. "You don't understand, Hestia. The more difficult it is to get something, the more precious it is. The more naughty the child is, the cuter it is. I've seen the rebellious child many times. It's nothing." After all, many of Apollo's family members had been pursued by Apollo using all kinds of pestering methods. Those people must have also tried to resist. Therefore, Apollo had long been used to the resistance of the people he liked. Among the gods present, there was one who agreed with Apollo's point of view. "Indeed, that child is different from ordinary children. It's not easy to get him, so he's especially precious." The silver-haired goddess was sitting in a corner, but she was unable to conceal her radiance. She constantly attracted the gazes of the male idols around her, causing many of them to reveal infatuated expressions. She held a glass of red wine and took a small sip. While saying such a sentence as if she was intoxicated, she glanced at Apollo and smiled sweetly. "For such a cute child, you can't let others have him, right, Apollo?" The corner of Apollo's eye twitched when he heard Freya's words. Of course, Apollo knew what Freya meant. Naturally, Apollo also knew what kind of god Freya was. This goddess was very different from Apollo in nature, but they were both very affectionate gods. Moreover, Freya and Apollo were very similar in that once they had set their eyes on someone, they would pursue him no matter what. The difference was that Apollo's methods would be unworthy of his status as a god, while Freya's methods were sometimes extreme, but she would never do anything that went against her status. If Apollo was compared to a businessman who valued profit above all else, then Freya was a true queen. She could be domineering, strong, and cruel, but she would never give up her self-esteem. This was the biggest difference between Apollo and Freya. In addition, Freya's minions not only had Eulalia's ultimate weapon, but also one of the most powerful minions in the truest sense of the word. To be honest, Apollo had hesitated for a long time to snatch Freya's child. In the end, he chose to be a moth to a flame. The so-called gods were just that unreasonable. Sometimes it was a small reason, sometimes it was an insignificant thought, but because of this, they would do anything to satisfy a group of transcendental existences. This was how gods were. Enough, Listening to the two of you talk about your love for the child in every sense of the word makes me feel uncomfortable. Loki was also present, and he spoke with a displeased expression. Hurry up and decide on the format of the war game. All the gods agreed one after another, and Hestia and Apollo both nodded. The meeting of the gods began. Chapter 896. I propose that the war game be a one-on-one duel, and the two of us will choose a member of our clan to decide the winner. What do you think? As soon as the meeting started, Hestia did not hesitate to put forward her idea, and even incited the gods around her. A one-on-one duel between children is the most exciting. You should also want to see it, right? Hearing Hestia's words, many of the gods nodded repeatedly. That's right, that's right. A duel is the most exciting. Letting Apollo's child gang up on a person or something like that will only spoil the fun. I also support this idea. Many of the gods expressed their approval, and they were all laughing. They were simply a bunch of guys who wanted to see the world in chaos. Of course, these gods did want to see the world in chaos. As long as it could bring them entertainment and excitement, no matter what it was, they would not hesitate to agree to it. Therefore, Hestia's speech in the aspect of entertainment and excitement would definitely be met with the gods who were eager for these things. If that's the case, then a duel without suspense would be even more boring, right? Apollo snorted and retorted without hesitation. That day at the banquet you all saw it. Although I don't know what extremely rare skill or magic was used, the child who was at most LV 2 was indeed able to contend against Aureli's ultimate weapon for a short period of time. If it was a one-on-one duel, even the best child in my clan would be defeated in an instant. You all saw the situation on the street that day. That's not interesting at all, right? Hearing this, the gods around seemed to have just remembered this matter and nodded one after another. That's true. A one-on-one duel is not interesting at all. If it was a one-on-one duel, the child in Apollo's clan would definitely be defeated in an instant. If the high-ranking children from Freya's clan and Loki's clan come out, it will be very exciting. That's right. Why don't we let Freya and Loki's clan and the child play a war game? That's a good idea. As they chatted, the topic was diverted by the excited gods to their grandma's home. In any case, I'm definitely against a one-on-one duel. Apollo pulled the topic back. Since this is a war game between the family clan and the family clan, then we should throw in the members of the two family clan. I suggest that we let the two family clan engage in a strategic battle for the position. Whoever grabs the position first will be considered the winner. What do you think? How is that possible? Hestia slammed the table and stood up. Then wouldn't it be impossible for my clan tribe to win? We're the same, aren't we? Apollo shrugged. If it was a one-on-one battle, wouldn't it be impossible for my clan tribe to win? It's your fault for not having a master in your clan, Hestia said, a little annoyed. Who's to blame for not being able to bring out the full potential of your child? If that's the case, then I can also say that it's your fault for having so few people in your clan. Apollo retorted without backing down. Who can you blame for not having the ability to get more children to follow you? You? All right. You're so annoying. Loki slammed the table, his face full of impatience. Let's have all the gods here write down their own ideas. Then we'll draw lots to decide. Loki's suggestion was approved by all the gods present. Hestia and Apollo could only shut their mouths in the face of such a fair proposal and nodded in agreement. After a while, a box was placed in the middle of the round table, and each god placed a piece of parchment on the table in front of them. Then, each god wrote down their own ideas on the parchment and began to collect the parchments. After rolling them into balls, they threw them into the box. Hestia wrote the words duel on her own piece of paper. Naturally, Apollo wrote the words positional warfare on his own piece of paper, and put them into the box one by one. When the lot was ready, Loki stood up. Let me do it. Both Hestia and Apollo raised their eyebrows upon hearing this. You want to do it? Hestia looked at Loki suspiciously. You're not siding with Apollo, are you? After all, the relationship between Hestia and Loki was bad. Every god knew about it. Goddess Loki, you're not siding with Hestia's family, are you? Apollo asked with a fake smile. Everyone knows that you also want that child to join your family. Loki glared fiercely at Hestia and Apollo. Don't worry, I hate both of you equally, so I won't be siding with either one of you. After that, Loki ignored all the gods present and began to flip through the parchments in the box. All the gods present held their breaths. Under the watchful eyes of all the gods, Loki took out a piece of parchment from the box. After glancing at the contents, he smacked his lips and threw the parchment on the table. On the crumpled parchment there were 3 words written clearly. Siege War. Hestia's childish but cute face immediately darkened. Ha 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 ha. Apollo laughed out loud. He was very proud of himself. This is a sacred and fair decision of drawing lots. Hestia. You can't go against it. Although there was no positional battle, which Apollo wanted to see the most, it was still very advantageous for Apollo if it was a siege war. After all, in a siege war, whether it was attacking or defending, it required a large number of soldiers. In this regard, Apollo had a big advantage. How about this? Hestia's family will be the one to attack, Apollo said with a happy smile. No matter what, a family with only 2 people can't defend the city, right? Hestia bit her lip, but she could only accept the result. Since the method has been decided, let's decide on the date, Rocky announced in a businesslike manner without any mercy. We've already completed the guild's application, and we'll inform them of the details. Considering that the guild still needs to prepare a site for the city, we estimate that it'll take at least 3 days. Hence, we've decided to set the official date for 3 days from now. No objections. No objections. No objections. Of course, no objections. One by one, the gods voiced their opinions. When Freya, who had been drinking wine in silence, said something, she slowly put down the wine glass in her hand on the table, her smile never changing. No objections. Everyone agreed. Hesti, Apollo said with a smile on his face. In these 3 days you have to help me take care of that child. Hestia just snorted, got up and walked out without hesitation. Hephaestus had no choice but to follow her. After Hestia and Hephaestus left, the gods in the room started to leave as well. Loki, who was still sitting in his seat, ignored Apollo who was walking out and spoke to another goddess who was also sitting in her seat. Are you just going to watch that pervert touch the girl you like? Then what about you? Freya's expression changed as she asked. Don't you like that child very much? I only like his talent, but you like the child himself, don't you? Loki curled his lips. That's the object of your affection, and you just watch someone else get him? That's not your style. You said it yourself, it's only under the condition that someone else gets him. Freya raised her wine glass and looked at the dark red liquid in the glass. Her face curved into a seductive smile. How could a guy like Apollo get his hands on a child who could resist my charm and drive me crazy? Lucian thought to himself. Loki did not say anything else. This attitude proved that Loki and Freya had the same idea. Those members who haven't even reached LV. For one to fight against the child that even Finn can't see through, and Reveria said is very incredible? Loki looked at Apollo's back with pity. How shallow.